ICPcast brings you thought-provoking podcasts with global leaders and innovators. Each episode delivers fresh ideas, expert insights, and stories that spark action. Our podcasts feature Dr. Shah Siddiqui, a respected business leader, and Joseph Lewis, owner of Isler Wealth Management, who shares his expertise in wealth management, offering insights and strategies to help clients achieve financial growth and stability. Our guests have already made their mark sharing their journey, strategies, and lessons learned. From Janie Frampton OBE to Shivam Malhotra, ICPcast brings you real stories of success and growth. Join the ICPcast community, listen, learn, and lead. Tune in at ICPcast.com and experience the stories of leaders shaping tomorrow.
In today's episode, we are thrilled to welcome Janie Frampton OBE DL, Leadership and Inclusion Speaker, Team U Development, and Executive Chair, Find My Kid.
My key business is Team U Development, which is a social enterprise, and we work really hard delivering skills to particularly children and young people. We provide lots of different programs around soft skills, social skills, employability skills, with the hope that it will help young people make positive life choices.
I have great curiosity. How come you become a one of the female referee?
My biggest barrier would be my gender. I was very naive then to realise that was the case. Football didn't want us as women, they didn't know what to do with us. So it was quite a challenge to actually become a successful woman referee in football and then transfer those skills into my professional world. It's very well researched that men will appoint in their own likeness, people like them, who think like them, necessarily look like them, which is why we get most of the leaders, we have in business and industry are white men. So we're trying to change that narrative that says, actually, we have to be inclusive here. And we all bring something completely different to the role. So that is what we work really hard to do. And I've had some great success stories across sport and industry of actually achieving that.
In this world, being a neurodivergent person, I know how critical it is, and where you go everywhere is just a practice of tick boxes. We don't want tick boxes. We want you to assess right people for right job. Doesn't matter their disability, race, ethnicity, gender, they will get right proportion, isn't it?
And that's exactly right. That's what we all want. None of us want to be elevated to a role that we are not qualified or experienced to do. And why they make such a big positive difference in your executive teams, your leadership teams, and in your organization. And it really makes sense because all the time you get people who look like you, think like you, speak like you, then you're not going to get different ideas. But once you expand that and you get people who do think differently, that's when you're going to be a creative organization and your productivity will rise because research has shown that.
You know how to change them. If I give your example, sports from your heart. So when you're going to be implementing sports related activities, you know what you're doing. Hello everyone. Thank you for joining today's Innovative Circle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Shah Siddiqui, CEO at Time Research and Innovations and Marketing Agency and Tedbot AI. ICPcast is an initiative to bring innovative ideas, transformative strategies, and forward-thinking insight from various industries, whether it is in technology, artificial intelligence, marketing, finance, lead generation and sales, business advisory and development, tax and accounting, or sustainability. We bring you insights from the brightest minds, C-level executives, and industry leaders who are shaping the future. In today's episode, we are thrilled to welcome Janie Frampton OBE DL, Leadership and Inclusion Speaker, Team U Development, and Executive Chair, Find My Kid. She's a global leader in inclusive leadership, governance, and sports development, and has been awarded the OBE for services to equality for women in sports nationally and internationally. A former FIFA instructor and FA national referee manager, Janie has spent her career breaking down barriers and empowering underrepresented voice across sports and business. She's co-founder of Team U Development, vice president of IFSO, and a trusted voice in equality, education, and strategic culture change. With decades of frontline experience and a passion for intersectionality, Janie contributes to inspire individuals and organizations to lead with purpose, empathy, and bold action. So today, our discussion topic, Janie Frampton OBE, Building Inclusive Culture, and the mission at Team U Development and Find My Kid. So to all our viewers, get ready for practical strategies, insightful discussion, and fresh ideas to help you grow, succeed, and make an impact. Hello, Jane. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Shah. I'm great, thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast.
It is a great pleasure to talking to you today because, we have very few women in this podcast. And most of the time we see leadership is man. And being a woman, and I'm very much fascinated to talk to you today. And you know that I was waiting for a long time to have this interview done. And I'm very grateful to you and your time. So thank you very much for joining today's Innovator Circle podcast. As you know that we're going to be asking you a set of questions to get our audience understand and have a detailed understanding of your work. So my first question to you, could you provide a brief overview of your business and share what inspired you to enter through this field?
Sure. So my key business is Team U Development, which is a social enterprise. And we work really hard delivering skills to particularly children and young people. So we provide lots of different programs around soft skills, social skills, employability skills, with the hope that it will help young people make positive life choices and steer them away from negative behaviours. But also we do an awful lot of work with adults, corporate organisations across world governing bodies of sports to help individuals develop themselves as well as the organisation as a whole.
That's the work you do. I have a few questions. Although these questions are not on part of the questionnaire that I shared, I have great curiosity. Like, how come you become one of the female referee?
Yeah, so it's quite a long story, Dr. Shah, so I'll put it in the short version. At 15, I fell in love with football. And the only way in my early 20s that I could get involved in football was to take up refereeing, which is what I did. But I never realised that for me to succeed in my sport, that my biggest barrier would be my gender. I was very naive then to realise that was the case. Football didn't want us as women. They didn't know what to do with us. So it was quite a challenge to actually become a successful woman referee in football and then transfer those skills into my professional world.
It's fascinating. Where there is, you talk about equality, you talk about a lot of different things. Still, we are not out there. But the way you challenge the world is amazed many people and generations to come. So my next question, could you discuss the key issues in your industry and explain how your efforts are making difference to your clients and your collaborators?
Yeah, so the key issues, I guess, across sport and industry is still most of the decision makers are male. So when you're looking at women growing and becoming leaders themselves, it's very difficult for them to do that. There's a human element that men, and this is very well researched, this is not my voice, it's very well researched that men will appoint in their own likeness, people like them, who think like them, necessarily look like them, which is why we get most of the leaders, we have in business and industry are white men. So we're trying to change that narrative that says, actually, we have to be inclusive here. And we all bring something completely different to the role. So that is what we work really hard to do. And I've had some great success stories across sport and industry of actually achieving that.
That's great explanation, Jane. My next question, who are the clients you aim to help and what key benefits do you deliver to them?
So the clients I work with, mainly international sports organisations, so people like World Athletics, World Rugby. I work for some of the big financial houses in the world. And we look at creating inclusive environments. And it's not just a tick box. It is actually believing that everybody who works for that organization should feel comfortable and they should feel they belong in that environment. So that's what we try and do. And most of what we do is where the existing leaders and executive teams, they don't realize that they're not being inclusive. So it's sometimes just a case of opening their eyes to actually best practice and how they could actually improve their business and their productivity by being more inclusive.
I totally agree with you. In this world, being a neurodivergent person, I know how critical it is. And where you go, everywhere, it's just a practice of tick boxes. Like you tick one boxes, you safeguard yourself from government legislation. Like, in 25 people, you can have only one disabled person. So if you tick one boxes that you have one disabled person, you are covered. But what will happen the rest of the disabled person? And you know that in the UK, 15% of the population are neurodivergent. When you have a huge population in the neurodivergent and you have these tick boxes, unless person like you intervene with a proper plan, like, okay, we don't want tick boxes. We want you to assess right people for right job. Doesn't matter their disability, race, ethnicity, gender, they will get right proportion, isn't it?
And that's exactly right. That's what we all want. None of us want to be elevated to a role that we are not qualified or experienced to do. However, we also want a fairness where people who have protected characteristics or are from minority groups are not overlooked because they're not seen to be the norm in those roles. And I have to say to you, Dr. Shah, I read an incredible book recently, and I probably shouldn't give it a plug, but I'm going to. And it was Matthew Said's Rebel Ideas. And he talks so much about neurodivergent people and why they make such a big positive difference in your executive teams, your leadership teams, and in your organization. And it really makes sense because all the time you get people who look like you, think like you, speak like you, then you're not going to get different ideas. But once you expand that and you get people who do think differently, that's when you're going to be a creative organization and your productivity will rise because research has shown that.
I totally agree with you because I was doing another podcast last week. So it was Toucan Diversity, one of the organization in the Southeast, and they are disabled people and they have a disabled organization, so led by disabled people. So, when you have disability, you know how to change them. Like if I give your example, like, okay, sports from your heart. So when you're going to be implementing sports related activities, you know what you're doing. So if I go over there and take your position and control that, I'm not going to do that very well. So it's the normal norm that, okay, people, they are think alike. Yes, they can do work with you, but they cannot bring changes. People, they don't think alike, they can.
And neurodivergent people in your team are huge for actually being that creativeness, that innovative, that thinking differently, that change. And they seem to do it, well, naturally, because it's who they are. And that's what we need to learn from. So, regardless of your protected characteristic, people bring something very different to your team.
I totally agree. So thank you very much for joining today's podcast. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui, and I have Janie Frampton OBE. So I just wanted to ask you another questions because as you know that you have awarded the OBE, can you tell us a bit more about your award, how you have achieved that, and why you have given this award to you?
So I'm, of course, truly humbled and honoured to be awarded, and I'm still in shock after all of this time, because I think there's some amazing people out there who have done amazing things, so it's very difficult then to realise that you've been honoured in such a way. But I do an awful lot of work with young people, with children, with women and girls around the world. I look at countries where girls are not perhaps treated as fairly as they should be, and we educate the men and the families. So the work we do is not about leaving men out of it. The men are a huge part of our conversation because they are our allies and our advocates. All the time that they have the majority role as the leaders in the house and in business, we have to work with them because that's right. So why would you shut them out? So I do an awful lot of work with underrepresented groups, I have a passion for Muslim women. I'm the patron of the Muslim Women's Network in the UK, and I've challenged many authorities around the rights and protection of Muslim girls and women, particularly in sport. And so I guess I'm very passionate about what I do, and I'm not afraid to stand up for unfairness.
I totally get you how you explain this, because being a white person representing a underrepresented community is quite brave, isn't it? And while it is Muslim, as I'm Muslim myself, I understand the inner mechanism of people and Muslim. They don't want women to go to sports. They want women to stay at home and look after their children. But you are changing the world for the betterment of the people. You can name few women leaders in this country and in sports as well, like Bandit, like Beckham. We all know about that story, the way the community works. Can you tell us a bit more essence of your work with the Muslim women? How do you transform them?
So we did some work with, I fully appreciate that culturally it is difficult for women to be involved in sport. I get this, Muslim women. I do get this. So we trod very carefully so the girls didn't have to compromise their culture or upset their families. But it's also a fact that the physically unfittest demographic in the UK are Muslim women and Asian women. So we knew we had to do something. So we have short 6-week programs where we have once a week, we meet a certain amount of Muslim women. We signpost them to a different sport every week so they can try it in a safe space. And then we can signpost them to where they can take part in their community if they like it. And we also have discussion groups while we're together networking. We have an online platform where they can dip in and dip out in their own time around confidence building and resilience and things like that, and all of those soft skills. But we are really careful not to tread on the toes of the family unit, But do you know what? Most Muslim men these days in the Western world, they want their women to have a full life. It's changed, as you well know, Dr. Shah, that it has changed. And so they like the fact that their women are just not only looking after the families now, but some of them have amazing careers. And now some of them now can play sport, which we've got some great advocates within sport of Muslim women. And they're playing sport with a hijab, which is even better news.
I can sense it because, I can see many Muslim women and African Muslim women because, if you think about Bangladeshi or Asian or Indian Muslim women, they are more liberal than the African or Arabian one. So when you see that women in hijab playing basketball, how amazing that is.
Yeah, I was part of Project Group when in 2006, FIFA banned the wearing of hijab in football. And in 2011, Prince Ali bin Hussein of Jordan, who was on FIFA Executive Committee at the time, he decided he was going to challenge that ruling with FIFA. So I was called in as one of the technical experts from around the world, and we would meet in Jordan and we would break down the rationale that FIFA had for the banning of the hijab. And so in 2012, the ban was lifted, which meant 660,000 women of footballing age, could not now compromise their culture in order for them to play their sport. And then, of course, once football broke it down, other sports broke it down. So it was a huge achievement, because it had to be done. Muslim women have the right to do exactly the same as a Christian woman or any other religious woman.
Oh, Jane, I'm very proud of you, the work you do. The way you describe things, I think our viewers, they're going to love it because, adjusting a little bit of the things in the top can steer growth in the bottom massively. So I can sense myself, I was born in Bangladesh, a rural village, and then brought up in Dhaka. My father died when I was 4. My mother struggled, but we were 11 brothers and sisters. So you can imagine I was number 10. I was autistic and I did not know that. So my mother did not knew that I was autistic. So, but she gave us all the things, all the education and everything, the small adjustment make us who I am now. So women behind me to get this success. Then my wife came in, my mother-in-law. She was the first female accountant in Bangladesh. So you can imagine that the way I see women, behind my success, I can see the similar way behind you are steering a lot of families, a lot of women in a right manner. So now I understand that why you are being awarded the OBE, because it's not like that they just awarded for
No.
no. The thing you said, that one thing changed the entire world race. Thank you. Thank you. I will jump into my
Well,
conversation again. Yes, sorry.
and I guess one of the other things I'm really proud of is the work I do in the Caribbean. So if you look at the girls' opportunities in the Caribbean, they are very limited. So UNICEF figures show that girls and women in the Caribbean, they've got the second highest young teenage pregnancies in the world. They have things like the statistics on their first sexual experience between the age of 11 and 14 happens in the family, because it seems to be a rite of passage and the girls don't have a voice to say no. So we're now having educate, families, not just the men, but the families, to understand that the girls have a right to say no, and they have a right to a future, and they have a right to having good careers. And it doesn't mean to say they have to be pregnant at 14. So these strong reasons to make sure that women are supported in the underrepresented world, really.
I get you what you are doing in the community. So thank you very much for your great work. My next question to you, what makes your approach unique to helping this huge population?
Sorry, I understand the question.
What makes your approach unique in helping the clients and achieving these outcomes?
Sure, thank you. So I think I have a unique approach because I have such a lived backstory. I have survived and succeeded as an underrepresented woman in a very male-dominated world of football. And because I have learned so many skills and I have so many tools now how to deal with difficult situations, I think that unique backstory helps me to go forward, because I had to have a voice in football. I had to make my own voice because nobody wanted to listen otherwise. And even whether it's on the football field with the players or whether it was my role within the FA and with FIFA, you have to find your voice. And I wanted to make sure that I gave women and underrepresented groups that voice.
That's fascinating, Jen. My next question to you, are partnership part of your business model? And from your partner's perspective, what benefits make you an ideal collaborator?
Well, I think because we are quite unique in what we do, we're not like a normal leadership program. We're not like a normal social enterprise program. What we do is very innovative. We do things differently. This whole wraparound 360-degree education, not core education, but it's about preparing young people to be life ready and work ready. And I speak to the universities all the time, and they say that they prepare young people academically in colleges and universities, but they don't prepare them for life and they don't prepare them for work. So it's about giving young people some sort of resilience, because I find more and more now young people don't have a resilience to survive against adversity. And life is a challenge. And these young people are going to come across a load of challenges. So it's about giving them the skills to be able to deal with it when it comes along.
It's totally true, because I was an academic. I was in the field, academia. But when you do business, academy and business, it's just like chicken and egg situation. It's just like when they teach students, they take the theoretical thing, but they don't give any practical implementation. So it's just like when you finish education in college, schools, or whatever, you are in the field of practical things, and you just like it's an ocean. Like, okay, where you go, what you do, how you do, all those things. And I think the way you say 360 degree, people really don't understand what's the meaning of 360 degree. They think that, okay, 360 degree means you see everywhere. But to achieve 360 degree in your work or in your business and all your training, it's very difficult task to do, because 360 degree makes you perfect, isn't it?
That's the aim. But I guess our wraparound 360 is to create a whole person. Not just an academic person or a person that only does manual work or low-level skills. We want to create the whole person, so they know what social awareness is, they know what communication skills are and body language, and they know the employability skills, so they can put themselves forward in the best possible way possible. And conflict management is another one that we deliver, because young people, you've only got to say boo now and they jump, because they don't have any resilience when it comes to any conflict management and how to stay calm, and all of these things are around, making sure that you're calm within yourself before you try and deal with sort of challenging situations. All of these things are things that we're trying to teach young people to make them ready for life and work.
That's great and fascinating, Jenny. And thank you very much for joining today's Innovator Circle podcast. So to all viewers, we're going to be going to a small break before we jump into more in detail questions. Until our break, stay tuned and we'll be right back.
Great conversations start with thought-provoking ideas, and visionary leaders turn them into reality. Meet Dr. Shah Siddiqui, an entrepreneur, AI strategist, and business growth partner dedicated to helping professionals and companies push boundaries, innovate, and thrive to drive transformation.
Did you know that 92% of executives consider digital transformation and AI adaptation are essential for staying competitive in today's market? Furthermore, companies that use data-driven insights for decision-making also see a 23% boost in profitability compared to those that don't. Through ICPcast, we bring together the brightest minds in AI, business, finance, marketing, and other tentative fields to deliver strategies that drive measurable success.
Dr. Shah is the founder and C-level executive and leads multiple startups, including Gen Z marketing agency, Neurodivergent Business Consortium, NBC, Time Research and Innovation, TRI, and Green Threads DPP. He is AI and technology expert and helps businesses harness AI for scalability and efficiency. He is a sales and business growth strategist and the creator of the Sales Funnel Accelerator, SFA program, to guide C-suite executives to maximize conversions and revenue.
You might be surprised to learn innovation isn't just about your ideas, it's about execution. In fact, only 10% of companies successfully turn their innovative ideas into scalable strategies, while the rest struggle with execution. Businesses that focus on effective implementation rather than just ideation 3 times more likely to outperform their competitors. After working with industry leaders and disruptors, I have learned one thing: success isn't just about what you know, it's about how you apply it. That's why I created Sales Funnel Accelerator and ICPcast to provide actionable insights that you can apply right way to drive business growth and innovation.
Podcasting is now one of the most powerful tools for business influence, with 80% of listeners taking action after hearing expert insights. And when it comes to driving sales, 78% of social sellers outperform peers who don't use social media for business networking.
Are you ready to be the part of the conversation that is shaping the future of business? Let's explore innovation, strategy, and leadership together. Book your cast with me today. Hello everyone, welcome back to the ICPcast. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui and I have Janie Frampton OBE DL. We have got some exciting insights coming up. So stay with us and we will dive deeper into the world of mentorships, innovation, and let's get started. So Jenny, thank you very much for joining today's podcast. And I'm enjoying your every individual sentences you are saying to me because it resonates with me. You know that before we went our break, you talked about 360-degree creating people that fascinate me because the way it can support individuals unless they work with you or they don't understand these settings, they don't understand it what you meant. So I think that everyone they're watching this podcast would contact you and talk to you how you can implement your framework for their advancement. So my next question, could you share your insight on upcoming industry trend and how you are adapting to remain ahead?
In industry?
Yes.
So, as you know, Dr. Shah, I'm also the president of the Global Chamber of Commerce in Birmingham.
Yes.
So it's really at the forefront right now about industry, trade, what it means to the UK, what it means globally. So there's quite a few things that are going to be shaping this. And one of them will be the relationship that we can create, not just with America, but with other countries, and the strength of Europe working closer together.
Mhm.
And of course, at the moment, the world is a very volatile place anyway. So when you're trying to actually come to trade agreements when the world is turning upside down, it's actually quite a challenge. So the political stress right now around who you work with and why, and what are the outcomes and the benefits, that is quite interesting.
Mhm.
And I think the one thing that America has done in recent months, it's made the rest of the world think differently. So I think it's a great opportunity. And I hosted 100 days of Trump breakfast at the chamber last week. And we talked about the opportunities of actually finding new markets to trade with, markets where the tariffs are low or non-existent, and different types of trade that we wouldn't normally have touched before. Let's explore. So I've been really clear now in my role that we're looking at the region, what trade is going on in the region, and then what countries we need to start to build relationships with in order to create that bilateral trade relationships. So it's actually a very exciting time right now.
I totally agree with you, because when some drastic incident doesn't happen, you don't fix your problems, isn't it? You don't think differently. So I think in a good way, Trump has created this opportunity for the world to think differently. You are right. So my next question to you, can you discuss a major obstacle you have overcome and lessons you have applied to your professional approach?
So I think the biggest struggles in my world has been for people to listen to me, because again, particularly in sport, but also in other areas of business, women were not given the voice at the higher levels. So when you haven't got women at the decision-making levels at the top, then you're not going to get more women coming up through the system. Now, whether that's in sport or business and industry. So I think the biggest struggle is to find the allies and advocates in our male colleagues who can support you on that journey on the way up. And I say to you now really clearly, some men have been huge barriers to my career, but then some have been absolutely amazing, and I would never have achieved without them. So our strong male allies and advocates are there. We just need to make sure that we identify who they are. So I think that's my biggest struggle, is identifying who's walking with me and who's going to be that barrier.
Thank you. I wish this relation, I think we can extend to the next levels, complementing each other. I know culture very well. I also know this, the struggle and all of the things in the community, in relation with Muslim community. There are lots of stereotype things. And if we can overcome those things, you can create an inclusive culture. And I think adding that value will support generation to come. So thank you very much for adding this value. So my next question is, how do you measure your success of your professional work, both in your business and for the clients you serve?
Well, mainly that's in some of my jobs, that is done easily, because, for example, with World Athletics, we looked at globally how many women were on the executive teams on each continent for World Athletics, how many women were on the Council of World Athletics or the board, how many were vice presidents, which was nil. So when we started, we had a numerical figure. So it was really easy after certainly the first couple of years, then look at the promotion of women into the responsible leadership job within each continent. And even we had, after 2 years, our first woman vice president of World Athletics. So that was really easy to measure. And I think the other way we measure within sport and business is the women that we train and develop, how many get promoted, how many do manage to succeed within their space and their sector. And so that's really easy to measure as well. It might even be something simple, like if we're working in the Caribbean, that, a group of the girls might set up their own football club or their own athletic club, or they might have put themselves into up for a better job within tourism or education. So we can measure a lot of those things. And I'm sure there's also an awful lot that we can't measure, where we are affecting people or children and young people's thinking without realizing it.
Yeah, this talk is giving me lots of things to think about in the future. Because, the way you're describing everything in detail, I think I never come across like that from a woman thinking about a greater prospects. Thank you very much. My next question, can you share a story of a particularly rewarding project or client success that highlights your impact?
So I guess we can. So one of the projects I was working on is we started with World Athletics, and then I started working for every continent to make sure that it was cascading down. And we did a lot of work in Europe, and then a lot of work for the Irish Athletics Association. Every year we went across and developed the women further, and the amount of women who were now achieving greater things, it was fantastic. And one woman, she had a lot of confidence. She was very young when she first came to us in 2019. She was only about 20. Mm-hmm. And by the time we were still developing her, she was about 23. And she was now leading the whole women's development for Ireland. And that was amazing. But she was still stuck in Ireland. Mm-hmm. And I said, look, you're an amazing woman. You have the confidence. You have the specialism. You need to grow. And the only way you're going to grow is to move. Mm. And she finally left her family, left her job. And now she's heading up a huge sports project in Australia because she just needed the confidence to let go of that comfort blanket, to go and spread her wings and explore and make the very best of who she was.
Fascinating, Janie. It's really fascinating. Thank you very much. My next question, what skills or traits do you think have been most important to your success as an innovator?
What skills?
Yes, skills or traits you think that are most beneficial.
Sure. I think I'm very stubborn. So when I see unfairness, I have to challenge it. The skill I've learned most in the years is you can't fight every battle. So you have to pick your battles carefully and then you fight it to the bitter end. And for me, that's been really important. So that's my stubbornness. And I do believe I read people very well. So I strategically step forward with individuals and situations really carefully so that I bring them with me rather than turning them against me. And sometimes it's really, really difficult because all you really want to do is say, look, I really don't like you, but you can't. You have to work with them and you have to do that to achieve your outcome. And I do find that the patience of strategically managing these situations has been instrumental in my achievements.
Thank you. I can see the way you achieved your success, I think, can compare millions of women to one. And there are like this because women, as you said earlier, that you have to trust yourself that you are a great woman and you can change your lives, including others. Then you can change it. Otherwise, no. As I discussed earlier, that I had a brain tumor surgery, I was autistic, and people thought that, okay, end of my life. I cannot do even, I didn't pass my graduation, but I turned it around differently by believing me. Like, okay, I have greater aspects and I can contribute and I can change my lives and others. And that was the thing.
And you've got to believe in yourself because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to. Because you won't display the confidence if you don't believe in yourself. And that's really important.
I totally agree. So thank you, Janie. Well, we just have few more minutes. I know that you have to go. I'm just going to ask you the last questions. Do you have anything to add to the viewers?
I think the only thing I would always add is you can do anything if you put your mind to it. Mm-hmm. Don't let anybody tell you can't achieve your goals. Don't let anybody tell you can't do this because you can. And it's having that belief in your ability to succeed. And so you really do. You have to go out there and you have to do it. You have to make your choices and you have to take responsibility for your choices.
Thank you. That was a great conversation today with you, Janie. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in the Innovator Circle podcast. We hope today's conversation with Janie Frampton OBE has sparked fresh ideas and powered valuable insights to elevate your business strategies, whether it is business development, mentoring, sales, finance, innovation. Don't forget to subscribe later at ICPcast, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channels on Sales Funnel Accelerator. Please like our page on LinkedIn. And until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and keep leading the way of innovation. Thank you, and bye-bye. Thank you, Jenny, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
This podcast is dedicatedly to show people how they can solve problems, and as well as creating a support network. With this network, helping each other to solve specifically any problems that they encounter. It could be tax, it could be accounting, and it could be many other problems that is existing in the business space. So we have today with us Joseph, and he's from Iceland. Could you please provide a brief overview of your business and share what inspired you to enter in this field?
Tax preparation became a big industry, so Eisler came onto the scene generations ago. And what we were finding is that people wanted more than just tax compliance, they wanted tax planning. And as we worked with clients with their financial picture, their financial advisors were more focused often on stock picking. Say, if we can grab the right stocks, that's how you make money. People are finding you really do better in your finances if you find stable companies and let them grow. The problem that people are having, though, is the tax is killing them. And so really, to be able to merge your financial planning with your tax picture, that's the next level.
When you have parents and you think about all sorts of tax things, in the UK is different, in the USA as well as it's different. But if you do not understand what type of taxation you would cater for, it would be difficult. You will lose a lot of money if you do not tailor that to the next levels.
Don't get confused by the word separately managed account, or SMA. An SMA is just an account that doesn't hold mutual funds, that holds individual stocks, that you can sell those stocks strategically to harvest losses or time the gains as you want to. So the pros of the Flex SMA is you're going to get a tax deferral on the capital gains on your terms. The trend is not favorable to the next generation. So people that are willing to invest in relationships with their tax strategists are going to minimize the pain. We know any of us can grab a mutual fund or an index fund and watch it ride and ebb and flow with the market. That's not the challenge with financial planning anymore. The financial planning are watching your fees, watching your taxes, and implementing your risk tolerance in a way that's tailored to your individual interests and needs.
If someone knew they wanted to master in your field, how would you support them, and what advice do you give it to them?
I would say if you are willing to get out there and listen and do self-education, you're going to get ahead. And when I say self-education, I'm not talking about the CE classes or CPE classes that are required, the 20 minimum per year, 60 every 2 years we have here in Oregon. Those classes, they're basically teaching you the new laws and how the laws are changing and things like that. I'm talking about people who are strategic and innovative. You're going to want to make sure you are just a constant learner, and that would be my best advice.
Artificial intelligence will not solve your taxation problem because it's beyond that limit. Maybe it will take another few years or several years or maybe 10 years for artificial intelligence to talk about the work you do. Thank you for watching our recorded podcast, the Innovator Circles podcast today. And you probably know with my first episode of Innovator Circle podcast that we're going to be bringing C-levels executives. And each episode, we will talk about different things like technology, artificial intelligence, sales and lead generation, marketing, finance, business advisory and development, tax and accounting, as well as business and sustainability. So Innovator Circle podcast is a new initiative from Time Research and Innovation and Gen Z Marketing. So we have a specific wing that we tailored to grow our sales, and that is Sales Funnel Accelerator. So with Sales Funnel Accelerator, we have come up with this idea to talk to the industry as well as solve a specific problem, and we named it Innovator Circles podcast. So we have a special guest today, and I will introduce him in a minute. Before I introduce him, I just wanted to let you know, if you wanted to join the Innovator Circle podcast, please feel free to contact us through Salesman Accelerator and through our social media. So we will have a nice conversation and we will solve a problem together, and we're going to be working it globally. So I don't want to spend any more time. I just wanted to introduce our guest, and I will play the guest intro for you. So we have today with us Joseph, and he's from Iceland, and he is working long time now for serving specifically tax planning, business advisory, and accounting experiences. He is a legal accounting hybrid with a long history of helping countless companies make sense of difficult financial issues while improving and growing companies. Joseph, thank you very much for joining today's podcast.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Shah. Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Thank you very much. As you know, Joseph, this podcast is dedicatedly to show people how they can solve problems, and as well as creating a support network with this network, helping each other to solve specifically any problems that they encounter. It could be tax, it could be accounting, and it could be many other problems that is existing in the business space. So I'm going to be asking you a few questions on that regards supporting individual businesses as well as working in this space. So could you please provide a brief overview of your business and share what inspired you to enter in this field?
Yeah, so Eisler CPA and Eisler Wealth Management. Well, Eisler's been around since the 1930s and 40s. It was one of the original tax compliance after the 16th Amendment came along that allowed taxation of this. And so tax preparation became a big industry. So Eisler came onto the scene generations ago. And what we were finding is that people wanted more than just tax compliance. They wanted tax planning. And as we work with clients with their financial picture, their financial advisors were more focused often on stock picking. Say, if we can grab the right stocks, that's how you make money. There's so much transparency now with the industries and the stock market. People are finding you really do better in your finances if you find stable companies and let them grow. The problem that people are having, though, is the tax is killing them. And so really to be able to merge your financial planning with your tax picture, that's the next level. And that's what we provided. And as people work towards retirement, with my background, you asked about my background. So I have a legal background, went to Pepperdine University School of Law, and licensed as an attorney, not in the state of Oregon. So this unique background, that I think is valuable, where people can see the tax picture with their finance picture and integrate the two. And that's really where Eisler becomes unique, is because we have this sister company of Eisler Wealth Management with Eisler CPA. And here in the state of Oregon, we have a $1 million threshold. It's ranked number 50 out of 50 states for lowest estate tax threshold. Now, the federal government exclusion is about 13 million, and that's going to get cut in half on December 31st of this year. But it's still very high, so most people don't have to worry about that, but the states have a different issue. So I work with clients to help them avoid estate taxation, to move into retirement, to be strategic about their long-term financial planning, but with the focus on the taxes. Less about trying to outguess the market, but controlling your fees and taxes is where you get ahead financially.
That's amazing, Joseph. So to all of our audiences, if you're watching this webinar, although we are recording it and we're going to be live broadcasting it in the future date, but if you wanted to ask anything to Joseph, we're going to be adding his account details on our live as well. You can contact him directly through Eisler website as well as through LinkedIn. So, Joseph, I'm just going to jump into my next question to you. You know that you are solving problems, and you have discussed some of it in your previous conversation. So, could you please discuss the key issues in your industry and explain how your efforts are benefiting the clients and collaborators that you are looking after? I think that would be a very important question for the audience to understand how you are solving problems.
Yeah, so clients will come to me with usually one of four concerns. Number one, they want to make good financial decisions. Number two, they want to not just spend their money wisely, but number two, want to avoid taxes. Number three, they often want to transfer money to the next generation seamlessly and smoothly. And fourth, they often want to leave a legacy. I know Stephen Covey, he said that along with the Maslow hierarchy of needs, which is our basic needs for food, comfort, shelter, and our basic needs, he says there's another one that people often overlook, and that every human has the desire to leave a legacy. So sometimes that's done through charitable contributions. It's how your money's being left to the world. So that's an important part of that legacy. So these 4 areas, clients often come to us. And that second area, the tax picture, gets very complicated. The Internal Revenue Code, granted, that is about 1,000 pages long, but with all of the court cases and the interpretations and the analysis of it could fill up warehouses full of documents. So to be able to pinpoint what's important, that's why tax advisors become important. That's what we do, is help clients with these. And the laws are constantly changing. Mm-hmm. There's been a bit of an outflow. One of the challenges in the industry right now is there's been an outflow of tax preparers. So some people have called it the brain drain. And a lot of the baby boomers went into this profession in the late 70s and early 80s, and people could no longer do their tax returns by hand anymore in the early 80s, when the alternative minimum tax came on board, because you had kind of this parallel universe of taxation. People that were high net worth really needed a tax preparer to come along. So the industry ballooned during that period, and these boomers are now retiring. And so that's a challenge in the industry right now. But at the same time, we also have more technology to be able to tackle these problems. But the tax code, it's a different language. And you need somebody in your corner that really understands the language of taxes. And so that's something that we bring to the picture. It's beyond the W-2 and maybe a few charitable contributions and a home mortgage interest. It's people usually that have a business. So really with those 3 departments, the audit department, the tax department, the client accounting services department, they often funnel clients to the estate and trust and financial planning department. So when people are getting to that retirement phase or are in the retirement phase, then they need the advanced tax planning to avoid the estate tax. Very few people have to deal with an inheritance tax. There's no federal inheritance to tax. There's only a few states in America that have the inheritance tax, and it's kind of a niche situation. So people misunderstand. They think when they inherit money, they're taxed on it. That's not how it works. In fact, they get a step up in basis. They get a benefit. But when somebody dies, you do need to be careful of that estate level. So you want to plan in advance of that. It's too late after the person passes away to be doing the estate planning. It's the strategies you put into place in advance, and I spend time helping people with that as well.
That's quite interesting points, Joseph, I would say, because when you have parents and you think about all sorts of tax things, in the UK is different, in the USA as well as it's different. But if you do not understand what type of taxation you would cater for, it would be difficult. You will lose a lot of money if you do not tailor that to the next levels. So my next question would be to you: who are the clients you aim to help? Like, do they need to have a certain threshold that, okay, you want someone to this range, and how they will benefit out of you work, and what do you deliver to them?
Yeah, so there's some value you can provide to probably almost anybody who is a taxpayer, which is most people. Again, in Oregon, if somebody's over $1 million in their total net worth, which in this day and age, you get to that pretty quick when you've got your house worth over close to $500,000, you got a 401k IRA and some other assets, you get to that pretty quick. My sweet spot is business owners who are trying to retire, that are trying to sell their business and want to avoid taxes on the sale of their business. Those are the clients where I can really add a lot of value to them, and in ways that the other CPAs, frankly, in town and across the country don't have the same options for them. So and we can get into that, but kind of big picture, that's hopefully that answers some of your question. That is my key client, is a business owner trying to move into retirement.
That's interesting. Joseph, we're going to be continuing our conversation. So all the viewers, you're watching this podcast. This is Innovator Circle podcast from Time Research and Innovation and Zinzi Marketing Agency. We have a specific brand for sales and marketing, and that is Sales Funnel Accelerator. And we have combined this podcast for you to understand business and different space and spec of the business to get help and inspired. Joseph, what makes your approach unique in helping clients achieving this outcome?
So for most of my career doing tax and financial planning, people would come to me and they would say, I'm selling my business, I'm selling my piece of real estate, I'm ready to retire, I want to move on from it. And my response to them would be, well, you either need to pay the government a third, or you need to turn it over to a charity, or you need to defer the income or kind of get stuck in one of these other programs, or you have to pay the government a third. And the response would be something like, wait, I put $100,000 into this property a generation ago. I'm selling it for $1 million now. I have a $900,000 gain. I was expecting to live off that $1 million in retirement. Are you telling me that I only get $700,000 now because I had to pay $300,000 to the government? And do the quick math. 20% capital gains tax, 9.9% almost of state tax, at least here in Oregon and California, and then the NII tax, or the Obamacare tax here in America, 3.8%. So yeah, it's over a third. So that's the reality, is you just got hit with a $300,000 tax bill. And their response is, well, that affects how I live my life in retirement. That affects a lot of things. Maybe I wait, maybe I don't do it. And I didn't have a good solution for them besides some of these other programs that really tie up their money in ways that they didn't want. So last year, I went to a conference down in Austin, Texas, and I heard some buzz about an opportunity. So this is one of these things where it's probably better to look at the punchline and then work backwards from there. So the punchline is, how would you like to be able to sell your business tax-free or tax-deferred and put that money into a bank account that you can access whenever you want? You have a bank account, a Fidelity account in this case. How would you like that? Well, that sounds pretty good. That's the best outcome you could ask for. Well, that was something that I heard some buzz about a few years ago, and I didn't get more information on it. It just sounded one of these things that I kind of kept in the back of my mind. Then when I went to this conference last year down in Austin, Texas, I was listening to advisors between meetings and between the dinners and of the conference were buzzing about this program that they were using. When I got back to Oregon, I called my regional resource and I said, do you know more about this program? And I called one of my peer group members out in Maryland, and he said, yeah, we've been using this program and it works great. Okay, so now it's time for me to dig in. Now I start using it with my clients. What it's called is the Tax-Aware Flex SMA, or Separately Managed Account. Don't get confused by the word Separately Managed Account, or SMA. An SMA is just an account that doesn't hold mutual funds, that holds individual stocks that you can sell those stocks strategically to harvest losses or time the gains as you want to. So the pros of the Flex SMA is you're going to get a tax deferral on the capital gains on your terms. The other pro is it's liquidity. It's an account you control and you have instant access to the cash whenever you want. Another pro is diversification. You can put those funds into stocks or any other securities. You can put into bonds if you want more stability. The cons of the Flex SMA, it requires a $1 million investment. It's not something for smaller investors. Because of the resources required to run the account, they want to make sure there's enough money. Now, keep in mind, family offices have been doing separately managed accounts for generations with hundreds of millions of dollars. And people, when the IRS leaked, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett, they leaked these tax returns somehow. And people were outraged. How are these men not paying taxes? These are the wealthiest billionaires in the world. How are they not paying taxes? Well, these are the kind of strategies they were using, but they weren't accessible to people like me and you. Now with the technology where it's at, you're able to get into one of these programs with much lower thresholds. Now, they're a little bit complex. They might seem difficult to understand. I am happy to talk. I geek out on these, so I'm happy to talk through with anybody as long and as in-depth as you'd like on how they work. There are time constraints. You can't just sell your business one day and get the full capital loss the next day. You would need to hold the account long enough to generate the loss. Again, it's tax deferred, so you're left with highly appreciated low basis portfolio. In the example I gave of the $900,000 gain that would have been offset, that gain gets pushed or deferred because you triggered a $900,000 loss, but the $900,000 gain gets deferred. So this is good for sellers who have a large sale. They want flexibility, when and how much to use personally. They want to avoid taxes. They want options to invest and give to heirs or charity later. Now, keep in mind, it's like real estate owners, they have had access to tools like this for years. The 1031 exchange allows the real estate owner to push money into another property. Now you're still stuck with real estate, and we'll get into that comparison. But the real estate owners They've also had other things like the Delaware Statutory Trust and the UPREIT and things like that. Business owners haven't had any options. They're stuck. When they come into the office and they say they're going to have $1 million gain, sorry, you're stuck with paying a third of it to the government. Unless you're going to use a charity, and lock up your money, you're stuck. So this changes. This is a game changer. This is the biggest thing. And I talked to one of my partners emeritus who has been doing tax returns by hand since the 70s. Mm-hmm. This is the most innovative change that has hit the tax strategy world since he's been doing this.
That's great.
This is big time. Mm-hmm. I mean, here's a sample client that was doing it for 6 months. Mm-hmm. So in that 6 months, he put $1 million into the program, and his account after 6 months is worth $1,105,000. So he got a 10.5% return on his money.
Okay.
He beat the S&P 500. He beat the bond index. He beat the international index. He was beating all the indexes with this program. Mm-hmm. That's not the best part of what he did. The best part of what he did was to realize losses of $247,000. This slide was created 4 months after he started the program. If you were to look at this 6 months after he set up the program, it's closer to $400,000. But the point is, he had about $1 million in gains. In this case, this client sold collectibles, and he had $1 million gain. And he had almost no basis in it. So he took the money and put it into this program. So within 6 months, he had about $400,000 of realized losses. Had he had this program all year long, it would have been closer to $800,000 or $900,000 of losses. But again, I found out about the program partway through the year. So we didn't get him a full year. But had I had the program, and now you know that you don't make the same mistake, had I had the program all year, he would have offset almost the entire $1 million of gain. Mm-hmm. He has unrealized gains. So what's the big deal? You realize gains and you have unrealized gains. Don't you have to pay the tax eventually anyways? Maybe, but maybe not. Here's the thing about unrealized gains. You can take them on your terms. Mm-hmm. Now, if you take all the gains at once, you're going to push yourself into the highest tax bracket. So what if he takes them out over time? This particular client doesn't have a lot of income in future years. What if he takes those out? He just takes out $50,000 a year, 0% tax bracket, never pays tax on it. Let's say he does have higher income and he gives them to one of his kids in a lower tax bracket. Maybe that kid's in a 0% tax bracket or in the 10% capital gains rate bracket. He gives the unrealized gains to them. Voila, no tax to him and very little tax to the beneficiary. Or maybe later on in life, he decides he wants to give to a charity or he wants to start a charity. No tax when you give unrealized gains or you give appreciated stock to a charity. Mm-hmm. Maybe he gives it to somebody in a lower tax bracket. Maybe he donates it to a charity. Maybe he realizes the gains when he's in a lower tax bracket. Maybe he just holds it for the rest of his life, just in case he's got major medical expenses of $215,000. And then he can realize the gains if that medical crisis comes up and pays the taxes on it. And if that never happens, then he passes away, he gets a full step up in basis so his beneficiaries can inherit it tax-free. Nobody ever pays the tax. But the point is, you are delaying that decision. You're not stuck with the consequences in the year of sale. And yeah, you do go ahead and pay the tax years later. Well, you basically took a loan from the IRS because you didn't pay that tax years ago and you held on to it. So why pay the tax up front when you can pay the tax later and continue to invest that money? So that's the point of that slide there. Mm-hmm. The next slide here, some people ask, well, what is in these accounts that they're using to make these investments? Well, you probably recognize some of these companies: Apple, NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, that's Facebook, Broadcom, Berkshire.
Welcome to ICPcast. Meet Dr. Shah Siddiqui, a visionary entrepreneur shaping the future of business. Want to join him on the podcast? Just fill out the form and be part of the conversation. Dr. Shah Siddiqui specializes in business development and growth strategy, helping companies attract, engage, and convert customers with smart, practical approaches. Tune in as he shares insights, tips, and real stories that inspire leaders and innovators everywhere. Discover the ideas that shape the future with Dr. Shah Siddiqui. Only on ICPcast. Listen, learn, and lead.
In each episode, we will bring C-level executives to talk about their business journey and guide you through how they have succeeded on their specific role and business. Then we can create together the business growth that you're looking for. Hello, Shivam. Thank you very much for joining today's. Could you please provide a brief overview of your business?
We work as integrated teams across advisory, assurance, tax, outsourcing, talent solutions, and private client services, bringing forward the best thinking and personal commitment to each client that we work with. If a client is not happy, we're not happy. So we always do our best to think what's next for the client and advise them as best as possible.
I have tasked humanities, I have tasked film and television, software development, business development, and then AI. Could you discuss the key issues in your industry?
I think pre-pandemic assignments were pretty traditional, short-term, long-term business travel. I think post-pandemic with remote work and hybrid work, it has been a real shift within the industry and global mobility, and people choose that flexibility a lot of the times now. And the companies, like I said, which have adapted to this, which have updated their policies and their procedures are the ones that are flourishing, and they're able to retain talent.
If you are a grown-up companies and you need to grow your business beyond the capacity, think about the worst case scenarios first, because that's just down the line. You don't know, and the mishap will happen, and the money you will lose, that's enormous. So think about the negative first, then think of the positive.
As well as in that foreign jurisdiction. So I make sure that these individuals are filing the proper forms, which are extremely complex, and making sure that they're done properly. A lot of times people travel across borders, or companies send people across borders for work assignments, and they really forget about liabilities or the obligations that they're triggering for their employees. And I think it's really important to educate these individuals as they have this business travel or short-term or long-term assignments that
most of our businesses in the US and UK and global, they suffer from taxation problems. What makes your approach unique in helping clients?
But I really try to look at further down the line for them. What's next in their journey? What they might need now might not be what they need a couple of years down the line. And I try to educate my clients on what to look out for next, not just in the present. And that could probably have been avoided if planning was done up front for them for what would be something that they would require in the future. And making sure that companies are educated about this is really, really important. I am caring for them as I would myself, as I would my family, as I would my friends.
Whenever you work in any business, your business or my business or any other businesses, it is the core success if you understand your clients and solve problems. Hello, Shivam. Thank you very much for joining today's recording. I hope you're doing well.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Mr. Siddiq. It is a pleasure to be here with you today.
Yes, as you know that this is a business talk show, and we intend to add value with specifically C-level executives to bring innovative ideas to the board and then work together to solve a specific problems. So those you don't know Shivam, I just wanted to give a little introduction for him. Shivam has years of experiences and working strength in translating financial concept into business plans. He is working as a PRIO. He has experience across different disciplines, such as corporate tax planning, business development, and financial advisory. He is a go-to advisor for growth and innovation-driven companies. So Shivam, thank you again for joining this recording. I just wanted to ask you if you could introduce yourself to the audience. That would be great.
Absolutely, Mr. Siddiq. So, yes, as you mentioned, Shivam Malhotra. I am a partner here at Aprio, leading our firm's Global Mobility Services Group. I have over 10 years experience with international tax, specifically with company corporate tax planning, as they move individuals across borders, as well as helping individuals as they make these move across borders and, change their life. Like I said, been doing this for over 10 years with a lot of experience in business development, growing a practice from nothing to over $5-10 million, and really enjoy what I do outside of work. I am a new dad, I would say, 15-month-old daughter who I had in 2023. So it has been a very rewarding 2024. Really looking forward to 2025 as well. And it's a pleasure to be here again.
Congratulations on your daughter, because we have spoken earlier before last week, I would say, in last week of January. And we've been talking in different subject areas. And I came across about your daughter and good wishes for new parents, because I understand the way I have memory for my son. He's 10 and a half now, a little bit going to the puberty in next couple of years. But, from growing to till now is quite a big experience that I would say. So, Shivam, as you know that we're going to be asking a set of questions to you to understand and get to the bottom of each problems. And to start with, I just wanted to ask you, you are engaging with Aprio and a lot of others innovation plus 12 years. Could you please provide a brief overview of your business and share what inspired you to enter this field?
So let me start by talking a little bit about Aprio, the firm itself. We are a premier full-service business advisory and CPA firm that advises clients and associates on how to achieve what's next in their journey and their business. We work as integrated teams across advisory, assurance, tax, outsourcing, talent solutions, and private client services, bringing forward the best thinking and personal commitment to each client that we work with. If a client is not happy, we're not happy. So we always do our best to think what's next for the client and advise them as best as possible. My specialty itself is in international tax, as I mentioned. I'm leading the Global Mobility Services Group, which deals with helping companies as they transfer employees from one jurisdiction to the other, whether it be a short-term assignment, a long-term assignment, or business travel. I am involved at the onset with the company for planning purposes to advise them of the costs that they will incur as they look to move these individuals across borders. Mm-hmm. As we go through that planning phase and work with the company, then after that, I start working with the individual themselves as they have now triggered multiple tax obligations in various jurisdictions. So I help them to make sure that they are compliant with their obligations as they're crossing borders and working in different countries or different states. Making sure that they are always compliant and they know what to look out for and key deadlines, and making sure that they don't forget anything or miss anything is very, very important, as they have a job to do as they're transferring from one location to another. It's our job to make sure that they are compliant with their obligations, as well as the company. If it triggers any corporate tax obligations in various jurisdictions, we make sure both the individual and the company are compliant at all times. Now, what got me into this field is, I would say, pretty interesting. I actually started out working at an IT firm doing something totally different. I was doing coding, implementation of various IT applications, which is not what I went to school for. I actually went to school I did a double major in accounting and finance. Okay. I get this job in IT relatively quickly before graduating due to my cousin who worked there. Mm-hmm. Took the job. It was very good, very, very fulfilling. I was traveling 51 weeks out of the year, every year, for the first few years out of college. That is pretty enjoyable for a single man who gets out of college. You rack up the points, you rack up the miles, and you get to see a lot of various places. Mm-hmm. I did that for a couple of years, but it really didn't interest me. I really wasn't into the IT side of things. Mm-hmm. But then my neighbor, where I used to live, was working in accounting, and me and her one day caught up at the gym, and she told me, I never see you around except on the weekends. So, what do you do? And we got into that and got into what I did for school. And she said, this doesn't really correlate with what your degrees are in. Mm-hmm. Totally agreed. And she said, my firm, it was a very big firm. She said, my firm is hiring. If you're looking to make the switch, you're very early in your career. So if you'd rather do something what you had a degree in, we invite you to, apply and meet the partners and see where things could go. Fast forward 2 to 3 weeks later, I was working at an accounting firm doing tax. Okay. And the rest is history. Ever since then, I have been really enjoying what I do. I really enjoy working with clients. I really enjoy working with my team members. So I guess that's my story and journey of how I got into tax and accounting. And it's been very, very fun overall.
Yeah, I would say that's quite interesting because, if you see my CV, you will see that I have many talents. And among them, I have tasked humanities, I have tasked film and television, software development, business development, and then AI. So last, I would say 25 years, I'm doing business. I'm 45 plus. And doing all those things, I have gained substantial knowledge, and that I'm implementing it now with my work. So I can work in television and media. I can work in marketing and sales. I can work in business development, software development, and then AI and innovation. So it was a great story, Shiv, to listen to you because, if you wanted to do a job better, you can make it happen. It's your willingness. And I've been telling this to many people that I come across, mentoring and a lot of other things. I'm an advisor in the government levels. So whenever I talk to someone, I say that your willingness will give you the chapter that you wanted to write. Because without willingness, doesn't matter, you are expert in a lot of different things, you cannot make it happen. So thank you, Shiv, for adding a value to the audience. So my next question would be to you. Could you discuss the key issues in your industry and explain how your efforts are making a difference for your clients and collaborators?
Absolutely. So I think my industry has really shifted over the past 5 years on what companies and how the industry is actually being shaped. I think pre-pandemic assignments were pretty traditional, short-term, long-term business travel. I think post-pandemic with remote work and hybrid work, it has been a real shift within the industry in global mobility. And I think companies that haven't adapted to that are the ones that are being left behind and losing talent because they haven't adapted to the new way of work. Technology is the way of the future, right? And people have to get used to that, and they have to adapt to it, and they have to embrace it. I think companies that haven't done that are struggling, and they will continue to struggle. I think post-pandemic, the industry's trend is really hybrid work and remote work, which I have seen across many, many companies which have implemented strict policies around that. And I think it gives flexibility to employees to really choose where they want to work, rather than being traditionally in an office 5 days a week, which is what we were used to. Now, you can really work from everywhere. And I think having that flexibility also brings about compliance risks for the company as well as the individual. Letting your company know your preference on where you want to work, as well as being agile and mobile to work anywhere, right, is really where this industry is going. And I think very, very important to keep your employer notified about if you're not working in your home state or your home country, let them know where you are working. A lot of times it might not actually cause any issues for the company. They might be absolutely okay with it, but it does bring about compliance obligations with these moves and various locations people are working in. I think it's very, very important to keep your company educated and really let them know your whereabouts, because I don't think it's traditional anymore where people go to the office 5 days a week. I think it's very sporadic, and people choose that flexibility a lot of the times now. And the companies, like I said, which have adapted to this, which have updated their policies and their procedures, are the ones that are flourishing, and they're able to retain talent. Especially people coming out of college, the demands I've seen from new graduates. It's pretty fascinating to see, the empowerment that they feel. And I think it's good. I think it gives them power. I think it gives them flexibility. It gives them a choice on where they want to work. And I think companies have done a good job adapting to it, and we still have a lot more to do. But I think companies that do that, they do retain and attract the best talent. And I think that's really important as you build a successful company and a business model and culture within your company. I think it's truly important.
That's a great answer, Shiv. I appreciate the way you describe it, because as a technology company, and we do sales and marketing, business development, and AI. So when we combine all those things, we have different type of collaborators. So some people, they work in US, some people, they work in UK, some people, they work in Europe, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Far East, and a lot of different places. So in that way, I think you have answered specifically, like, okay, if you are a grown-up companies and you need to grow your business beyond the capacity, then you need to think, or you need to hire a person like you to give them a freedom to understand what would be the critical situation to focus on, and as well as how you can solve specific problems. Because businesses, they are expanding massively. They don't think about specific problems at the first, rather entering into the problem. But when I work with individuals as a growth partners, I mostly ask them, okay, think about the worst case scenarios first, because that's just down the line. You don't know. And the mishap will happen, and the money you will lose, that's enormous. So think about the negative first, then think of the positive. So thank you, Shivam, for adding value to the network. So everyone, you're watching this live webinar. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui from Time Research and Innovation and Sales Funnel Accelerator. So you know that this podcast is recorded on the Sales Funnel Accelerator, and you can see the branding on our screen. And as well as this is Innovators Circle podcast. So in every podcast, we will bring a guest and we will talk on specifically few touch points. And they are starting from technology and AI, artificial intelligence, sales and lead generation, marketing, finance, business advisory and development, tax and accounting, and sustainability. So you may ask why we are doing this podcast and what is our goal. Our goal is to empower you with result-based content to create growth, innovation, and success. So every episode of Innovators Circle podcast, we're going to be bringing a C-level executive to talk about a specific problem, how they solve problems, and how they implement and how they work to bring you the world in a fingertip. And with Innovators Circle podcast, you will learn and can implement those things with our guest and as well as within Sales Funnel Accelerator. So thank you very much for joining and watching today's live Innovators Circle podcast. I'm going to be asking Shivam next question to you. You know, you're working in the industry, but you might have a target audience. Like, who are the clients you aim to help and what key benefits do you deliver to them?
Absolutely. So I help global companies who are looking to expand their horizons outside of their home jurisdiction. As they're looking to mobilize talent and expand their business across various jurisdictions, I help them with their compliance and planning obligations, as well as the employees who relocate across borders. I help them with their tax filing obligations in various jurisdictions. I also work with high net worth individuals who have complexities to their individual tax returns. Mm-hmm. For example, an individual in the U.S. who has companies overseas in, say, countries like the U.K. or Germany, triggers a lot of filing obligations for them on the U.S. side as well as in that foreign jurisdiction. So I make sure that these individuals are filing the proper forms, which are extremely complex, and making sure that they're done properly to avoid any issues with the IRS or state taxing authorities, as well as in the foreign countries, making sure that they are filing their tax returns as well to avoid any issues in that foreign country. For example, if they're working in the UK, they might trigger UK tax filing obligations. So we make sure that we partner with local accounting firms in the UK to make sure that they're filing those obligations, as well as payroll, employment tax. Everything is being done properly from the onset of their assignment. Mm-hmm. Making sure that companies, as they expand, they might trigger additional obligations, additional corporate tax filings, foreign filing forms, making sure their transfer pricing policies are proper. So it's a vast variety of services that we deal with. It's not just a specific niche. We try to tailor our services to our clients' needs, and whatever it is that they need, we pull in the proper experts, whether it be me or a different partner within the firm, to make sure that we are providing top-notch service, as well as giving the best advice possible to mitigate any liabilities and risks for companies as well as individuals. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people travel across borders, or companies send people across borders for work assignments, and they really forget about liabilities or the obligations that they're triggering for their employees. And I think it's really important to educate these individuals as they have this business travel or short-term or long-term assignments that they have triggered obligations in various jurisdictions. So I make sure that we provide a holistic overview to these individuals from the onset and make sure that they are compliant through the duration of their assignments.
Thank you. Thank you, Shivam. It's been a pleasure talking to you, because I think as a business person, and this is a business show, most of our businesses in the US and UK and global, they suffer from taxation problems because each country is different and their taxation is different. So if you work in multidimensional aspects, like you work in USA, you work in UK, or you work in elsewhere, there is going to be a combination of different type of layers taxation problems. So everyone, if you have any problem regarding taxations and you wanted to get expertise, so Shivam is there. You can find him through social media, LinkedIn, and with Aprio website. Shivam, thank you for joining today's podcast. And I will ask you the next question. You know, you have different type of approaches. What makes your approach unique in helping clients achieving these outcomes that you have mentioned earlier?
Absolutely. So I think, clients come to me as a trusted advisor, first and foremost. And I think I always try to do what's in the best interest of the client. A lot of times they'll come with me various questions or things that they need, but I really try to look at further down the line for them, like what's next in their journey. What they might need now might not be what they need a couple of years down the line, and I try to educate my clients on what to look out for next, not just in the present. I think a lot of times client will come to me with an urgent need and they need help with something And that could probably have been avoided if planning was done upfront for them for what would be something that they would require in the future. And I think I've built a really good rapport with my clients on really evaluating their unique situation. Each client is different. They have different things that they want to achieve, different business processes, different timelines on what they're looking to achieve. I really try to zone in on my clients' needs and what they will need in the future and at the present time. I think a lot of times what we do within accounting might be just something to, stop the problem now, but we don't stop the problem in the future, I feel at times. So as companies expand and their business grows, there's going to be a lot of different things that pop up along the way, and making sure that companies are educated about this is really, really important, as well as for individuals as they, an individual as he's looking to expand his net worth and, diversify his portfolio, whether it be through real estate or having companies overseas. I think educating them upfront on what they will require down the line is very, very important, because it's always easy to start something, right? But it might be harder to finish something, I feel. And I think as you start something, you're really excited on getting something going, but you're not thinking longer term of the risks and the obligations that will arise from it. So I try to take that burden off my clients and really try to put myself in their shoes on what they will need and what to look out for. And I think that approach has really done me well through my career because I think clients realize that I'm really just looking out for their best interest. I'm not here trying to sell them a service or, just have them as a client. It's really thinking of them as myself. And what I would need and what I would want someone to do for me is what I do for my clients. And I think that's the way it should be, right? A lot of times I'll speak with prospects and it might not materialize into anything. It might just be, a conversation, and I'll be completely upfront with them and say, you might not need this. I know you're thinking about it, but it might not be something that you actually need if you pivot this way, right? So it's not always about selling a service. It's really about giving clear guidance and absolute 100% genuine guidance. And I think, when I search for a service or a search for something in my personal life, right? If I'm, if I need a plumber or if I need construction done on my house, I really value people who are honest with me, right? And I try to do the same thing in my profession with my clients and my prospects. Just always be honest with them and guide them the best way that I would expect to be guided.
Thank you, Shiv. It was a great pleasure talking to you and to all the viewers. You're watching this podcast, and you know that we recorded this podcast previously, and we are broadcasting through our social media and our channels. And we are going to be continuing this conversation to the next levels. Those you have joined later in the program, for your information, I just wanted to remind you that Business Growth Podcast, and we're going to be talking about technology, artificial intelligence, sales and lead generation, marketing, finance, business advisory, and development, tax and accounting, and sustainability. So any of our podcasts, we're going to bring in C-level executives like Shiv and all other guests you will see have long-standing career as well as solving problems and are working for multi-award winning company. So today we have Shivam Malhotra, and he's from Aprio. And he has years of experiences working in business development, corporation tax, and many more. So I will jump into my conversation, Shivam. Before I jump into my next conversation, I just wanted to go for a commercial break, and we're going to be coming very soon and continue our conversation.
Great conversations start with thought-provoking ideas, and a visionary leaders turn them into reality. Meet Dr. Shah Siddiqui, an entrepreneur, AI strategist, and business growth partner dedicated to helping professionals and companies push boundaries, innovate, and thrive to drive transformation.
Did you know that 92% of executives consider digital transformation and AI adaptation are essential for staying competitive in today's market? Furthermore, companies that use data-driven insights for decision-making also see a 23% boost in profitability compared to those that don't. Through ICPcast, we bring together the brightest minds in AI, business, finance, marketing, and other tentative fields to deliver strategies that drive measurable success.
Dr. Shah is the founder and C-level executive and leads multiple startups, including Gen Z marketing agency, Neurodivergent Business Consortium, NBC, Time Research and Innovation, TRI, and Green Threads DPP. He is AI and technology expert and helps businesses harness AI for scalability and efficiency. He is a sales and business growth strategist and the creator of the Sales Funnel Accelerator, SFA program, to guide C-suite executives to maximize conversions and revenue.
You might be surprised to learn innovation isn't just about your ideas, it's about execution. In fact, only 10% of companies successfully turn their innovative ideas into scalable strategies, while the rest struggle with execution. Businesses that focus on effective implementation rather than just ideation 3 times more likely to outperform their competitors. After working with industry leaders and disruptors, I have learned one thing: success isn't just about what you know, it's about how you apply it. That's why I created Sales Funnel Accelerator and ICPcast to provide actionable insights that you can apply right way to drive business growth and innovation.
Podcasting is now one of the most powerful tools for business influence, with 80% of listeners taking action after hearing expert insights. And when it comes to driving sales, 78% of social sellers outperform peers who don't use social media for business networking.
Are you ready to be the part of the conversation that is shaping the future of business? Let's explore innovation, strategy, and leadership together. Book your cast with me today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Innovators Circle podcast. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui from Time Research and Innovation and Sales Funnel Accelerator. And today we have a special guest, Shivam Malhotra from Aprio, and we will continue our conversation. And we have a set of questions to ask Shivam to add knowledge to the podcast, and as well as if you can follow some of his experience and expertise to improve your business. And you can also work with Shivam, and you can connect him through LinkedIn and all of the social media, as well as from Aprio website. So Shivam, thank you for you joining this podcast. I just wanted to go back to my conversation and ask you very specific question. Before I go to jump into the question, just I wanted to discuss something that I think our audience need to know, that you have a unique things about you, and you are a huge sneakers collector. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I think the audience, they need to know your personal hobby as well. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Absolutely, yes. Sneakers and me go back a long way. I mean, one of my first jobs was in a sneaker store when I was working in college, trying to make some money on the side. And working in a sneaker store, I would say, was extremely enticing to continue to buy sneakers. As I was working there, I ended up collecting over 365 pairs of sneakers. I would travel, I'm not even joking, 300-400 miles to various stores to just find one pair of sneaker in my size, and camp out overnight, waiting for the release. Certain sneakers are released at certain times, certain dates. There's very limited amounts, so I would be one of those crazy people who would go out there, make the trip, and collect that sneaker. And like I said, collected over 365 pairs of sneakers, very, very rare limited edition ones. It was something I was really, really fascinated by and really, really enjoyed. As I got older, I would say my lust for sneakers decreased just because I got a lot busier and I couldn't make the time that is needed to collect some of the sneakers. But even now, I still have over 300 pairs of sneakers, and I've given a lot to my nephews who grew up as they were really starting to get into sneakers. I would tell them, come over, take any pair of sneakers that you want, whichever ones that fit them. But it is a hobby and it is an addiction. But thankfully, I am not as addicted as I was. And other priorities have taken prevalence in my life, but it is something that was extremely fun, and it was a good hobby.
I think I can find the similarities with you. Those people, they are very strong collector minds, I would say, or anything else. What I do, I will finish that work. Doesn't matter very small or very big. It doesn't matter. I will fail and I will gain. I will finish the work I started. Last 10.5 years, when my son was born, I started taking picture of him every day, a picture and a video. And every single day, last 10.5 years, I'm taking his photos and videos. I don't know when I will stop. Maybe I will stop one day, but is a characteristics, isn't it? Like if you want to do things, no one can stop you. It's again, I'm going back to my other conversation like willingness. If you wanted to do something, no one can prevent you, because I travel different countries as well as I work in different continents. If I go outside, I must ask my wives or someone, they stay at home, I need a video and a photo, you must give it to me, and that's done. So you can imagine, yes, sometimes it's challenging, but we are here to face challenges, and how you can solve a challenge, that is your creativity. So thank you, Shivam, for sharing that. That attracted me as well when I was reading your biography on the website. So I just wanted to jump back to our conversation now. So, there are many participants when you work. Are there any partnerships part of your business model? And from their perspectives, what benefits make you an ideal collaborator? Like if you wanted to work with people across the industry or within your industry, do you work as a partnership models or collaborative models? How do you work with people or businesses?
Absolutely. So, I mean, as I deal with cross-border taxation, we are part of an alliance network where we have partnerships, collaborations with accounting firms in over 100 countries. As individuals travel and as companies expand, as I had mentioned, they trigger obligations in various countries. So as part of our alliance model, we partner with these member firms in various countries to make sure that we are able to provide our clients with a holistic tax overview, whether it be US, UK, Germany, India, you name it, we could have you covered in various jurisdictions. And I think that's very important to be able to offer that to clients in my industry, because as they travel across borders and as they expand their businesses, I had mentioned they are triggering obligations. So not only do we handle their US taxes, we will make sure that their foreign obligations are getting handled as well. We personally wouldn't handle the foreign taxes, but we have a great relationship with these other firms and have collaborated with them for many years to make sure that our clients are being served just like they are by our firm. And by building trust and building these relationships with various firms all over the world, I think it really benefits our clients, as well as it makes our lives a lot easier, right? We do what we're good at, which is U.S. tax and planning for foreign things that come up. And then we let the foreign countries handle their aspect, which their specialty is in their home country taxation. I think working with myself and working with my firm is extremely valuable because, for example, if a foreign firm reaches out to us, which we have an alliance with, that they have a client that is coming to the U.S., they know that they could trust us to handle their obligations absolutely perfectly. We treat their clients just like they're our own clients, even though we're being referred by another firm. That client becomes a part of our family, and now we take the best care of them, and we make sure that they are doing what they need to do, and we educate them along the way as well. U.S. tax could be very, very complicated, right? So as people come into the country or people leave the country, there's so many different aspects and various things that come up, and we don't expect the clients to know this, right? It's our job to educate them and do what's right for them. So I think partnering with us and collaborating with myself as well as my firm really serves well for clients as well as those accounting firms in various jurisdictions. Now locally, we also have partnerships with like payroll companies, because as individuals transfer borders, they do have to run payroll in, say, the US, for example. So we do partner with payroll companies to make sure that, like I said, that we could offer our client the entire suite of services, whether it's us who does the work or if it's one of our collaborators or partner firms. We are able to help the client from point A to point Z and beyond. And I think that is very, very important in our industry, that we could keep everything in-house rather than referring them to 5, 6, 7 different firms, right? If you're working with us, we will be the face, we will get the work done for you and take that pressure off of you so you could focus on your actual job, right? What you're looking to accomplish. You're looking to develop your business, you're looking to expand your business. That is your primary 9 to 5, right? So it's our job to make sure that the tax obligations and the tax burdens are not your responsibility. It's ours to make sure that we handle it. So I think collaboration in our business is super important. And I really enjoy working with these various firms all over the world. I mean, building relationships outside of the U.S. is extremely valuable. It's also nice to meet these people and travel to different countries as well. So it's a fun aspect to it as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Shiv, for sharing your insight. And I think viewers, they're watching this podcast will get valuable insight from you and as well as can implement them to their business. And if you have any problem, feel free to contact Shivam and he will be happy to lead you to the success. So today you are watching Innovators Circle podcast, and you know that we developed this podcast for you to understand business, and we're going to be covering technology, artificial intelligence, sales and marketing, lead generation, finance, business advisory and development, tax and accounting, and sustainability. So Each of the episode, we will bring C-level executive like Shivam, and we're going to be talking a specific problem and to solve this problem together. So today we are asking Shivam a set of questions, and we are nearly end of our session. We have a few more questions to ask, and I will go back to my next question. Shivam, could you please share insight on upcoming industry trends and how you are adapting to remain ahead? What is your secret sauce to, keep going again and again and again?
Absolutely. So I think in my industry, we went from traditional working in the office 9 to 5. Then we had the pandemic, we went remote. I would say for 2 years, companies went remote. Now we're going into more of a hybrid field where sometimes you're in the office, sometimes, you're traveling or working remotely where you choose to. I think that is where the future of this industry is. Future of most companies is this hybrid workforce. And I think educating my clients and coming up with policies and updating their policies, whether it be on a tax perspective or an HR perspective, making sure that companies and clients are aware of these new challenges and these updates that they have to make to their internal policies to stay abreast of these issues and stay competitive in this market is very, very important. As hybrid workforce is taking prevalence these days and going into the future, I think companies have to be able to offer that to their employees, and they have to have the right structure in place to do so. And I think myself speaking to my clients and, planning for this or making sure that if they already have this in place, that they're doing the right thing for themselves as well as their employees is very, very important. And what I do on an often basis is just touch base with my clients and see where they're looking to go next. Are you looking to expand into a different country? Are you looking to have employees work in various different states where you aren't registered? I think it's really important to gauge what they're looking to do in the future to be able to provide them the most best and proactive advice, which is what they need going forward. Companies are very ambitious in their goals and where they want to go, right? And a lot of times they will try to run before they walk, and that could lead to a lot of problems. So I think speaking with my clients on a regular basis and making sure that I am abreast of what their future plans are really puts me in a great position to advise them and pull in the right resources in various service lines and in various countries to make sure that as they look to make these moves and as they look to expand their business, we have put in the right protocols and the right processes in place for them to be successful, not just on a business perspective, but also on a compliance perspective. The last thing you want as a company is going into a different country or different jurisdiction and your business is prospering, but you are not compliant on your tax obligations. That could lead to a lot of penalties. That could lead to a lot of negative publicity. And that is not what you want as you're looking to build a company of the future. So I think I do a great job, and I try to do a great job in making sure I educate my clients and I stay ahead of the risks and making sure that we handle their obligations up front. And it's really just learning about your clients' future goals, and that's what we try to do.
Thank you, Shivam. It was a great pleasure to talking to you. And we have learned a lot of information that we did not know previously. So thank you for adding knowledge to Innovators Circle podcast and the audience. How do you measure the success of your work, both your business and for clients you serve?
I think I measure the success of my work with various factors. One is client satisfaction. How happy is the client working with me, right? Have I broken down that barrier of client versus firm? Client and vendor, right? I think once you break that barrier down and your client really becomes your friend is very, very important. And I think I've done a great job in my career doing that is, really becoming friendly with my clients and getting to know them on a personal level, not just a professional level. And I think breaking down that barrier has served me well because that builds a lot of trust with my clients. They know I am caring for them as I would myself, as I would my family, as I would my friends. And being able to do that has really made things a lot easier and has really gained trust on both sides. It doesn't happen overnight, right? Once you have a prospect, you really get to know them, and it takes time to build that trust. Once you build that trust and you break down that barrier, I think it really goes a long way. Both sides. You serve the client well, and the client is really appreciative of what you do for them. And I think throughout my career, I have always thought about that and always made sure I made it a point to do that. is really become extremely knowledgeable about my client in both business and professional aspects of it. Of course, we deal with compliance, right, in taxes, making sure that my clients are always compliant with their obligations. They're filing their returns where they need to. Payroll is being ran where it needs to. Their policies are updated. Everything is being done as it should be done. That's the compliance aspect of things, making sure that it all goes right. So like I said, there's a both personal and a professional aspect of making sure that your client is satisfied with the work that you're providing them. And then also, sometimes just picking up the phone and calling your client and just checking in on them. How's life? How's things outside of work? What are your summer plans? What are your vacations? It's not always about work, I feel. And when you do that with your clients, like I said, you build a lot of trust with them. And I think me being able to retain my clients over the years really just shows the kind of trust and the value that they have in me, is because they have chosen me as their trusted advisor and now as their friend. And for them not looking to jump around to various accounting firms really shows me that I'm doing what I should be doing, because a lot of times when I do get prospects from various locations, they're coming from a different firm, right? Or they haven't been given the service that they feel that they should. And I think in my case, I try to make sure that my clients get that top-notch service. I really get to know them. So they're not looking to jump around to various firms. Once they're with me, they're going to stick with me for the long run. They're a startup. We're going to be with them throughout the process as they go public, and we're going to do what's best for them. So I think that has been extremely crucial for me in my career, and I plan to continue to do that going forward.
Thank you, Shivam. It's a great explanation. And you know that whenever you work in any business, your business or my business or any other businesses, it is the core success if you understand your clients and solve problems with dialogues. Sometimes that we walk away, we become angry, and those things will destroy businesses. It will not increase any profitability and hinder the growth capacity as well. So thank you for sharing your core motivation and the way you work. Considering that, I just wanted to ask you another related question, like, can you share a particularly rewarding projects or client success stories highlighting the impact that you have made?
Absolutely. There's so many stories I could share, but one that comes to mind is when I was working with a client who had hundreds and hundreds of people that they were sending on business travel on an annual basis. They ran into some compliance issues with tax authorities, where the tax authorities had flagged them for not filing returns for these individuals who had been traveling across borders into the U.S. And it really caused a problem for the company due to the penalties that were being assessed both at the payroll and tax level. This was a brand new client to me, and we were onboarding them, and then their previous provider had not really advised them of this issue, as they had employees transferring to various jurisdictions and doing business travel. So as we onboarded that client and this issue came up, we had told the client, we will work with you on this issue to make sure that everything is rectified and resolved. It is going to cost you guys money because there's a lot of filings that have been missed. So that is something that you have to take care of, but we will try to do this as expeditiously as possible and try to make the process as easy as possible for you and try to put this behind us. So we had to go through, I would say, maybe 800 to 900 returns that we had to get done, 800 to 900 Form W-2s that had to get processed. And it all had to be done relatively quickly to mitigate the accruing penalties and interest for the client. I would say within about 3 to 4 months, we were able to get about 900 W-2s done, 900 individual tax returns done, make sure everything is filed, put together a comprehensive letter to the IRS as well as for the employer, making sure that we are addressing this head on and letting the IRS auditor know that this is the steps we have taken to remediate the issue, and this is what is being done, this is what is being filed, and if there's any additional questions, feel free to talk to us, because this is a long process that took years for this company that had no clue about it, but we are rectifying it as quickly as possible for them. After we did everything, after we spoke to the auditor and, we submitted everything, I would say within about 6 months after they've reviewed everything, everything was resolved. We were able to bring down their penalties and interests for non-compliance, make sure that the client is up to date with all their obligations, all their employees are fully up to date. And we were able to reduce their penalties and interest by over $1 million for all these missed filings and non-compliance obligations. The client was extremely satisfied with us, and I think having that client onboarded that year really built a lot of trust for them with me. as well as the firm. We were able to, really, really secure this client long term and do what's best for them. And they realized that we would be there for them when they need us, and we will do what's best for them. So I think saving them money, saving them headaches, and making sure that their reputation doesn't get ruined through the process was really, really valuable. And I think the client appreciated it. And it was a great project to work on. And I was really happy with the outcome and the result from it.
That's a great explanation and case study. We are just nearly end of our session, and I really appreciate your thoughts and as well as your guidance and your experience. Thank you once again. And I hope that today's podcast viewers can learn some effective lessons and as well as can implement them to their day-to-day lives. And if they wanted to work with you, Shiv can be connected through LinkedIn and any other social media as well as the Aprio website. So Shiv, thank you very much for joining today's podcast. And I will just say bye-bye to the audience. Please stay on the line. Thank you everyone for tuning the Innovators Circle podcast. We hope today's conversation with Shivam Malhotra has sparked fresh ideas and provide valued insight to elevate your business strategies in sales, marketing, finance, or innovation. We have covered a wide range of topics for you to understand. Innovators Circle podcast will cover specific fields from AI, technology, business development, sales and marketing, and tax and accounting. So don't forget to subscribe our podcast on our social media and as well as like and share within your networks, because every episode you will get some new insights and fresh C-level executives. And until then, follow us on social media, and I will welcome you to the next episode of Innovator Circle podcast. And until then, stay tuned, be safe, and bye-bye from me and my team. I will welcome you next episode next week. Bye-bye. We will discuss today turning food waste into packaging. John Feltz on Cruise Form's Eco Revolution. In today's episode, we have a very special guest. We have John Feltz today. He is the co-founder and CEO of Cruise Form.
Focus on the material itself and how we create it and what it can do and how it performs, which are all extremely important. But I think a lot of times the oversight on the real platform that it needs to tap into, that it needs to effectively work with. When we look at the industrial scale of supply chains, the scalability, the volume that you need to be able to achieve, the global sourcing and supply that you need to really be able to service.
So we were researching on how you can build biodegradable product from cellulose. And you know that I'm in Southeast Asia and we have lots of cellulose-based product. Production of the cellulose and making it workable is a catch-22 situation.
Yeah. This industry, touched on at the beginning, was a lot of materials have been able to achieve everything I just said in that statement. Performance, we can break down, check those boxes, but then you get to the final checkbox and it says, okay, what about scale and volume and cost? And that's where what we really wanted to do differently was build a process which could run through existing manufacturing techniques around plastics to really build a platform where we could take our biomaterials and produce them through partners, through existing stakeholders in production and conversion and distribution to create high volume, high performing foam, a biofoam.
Who are the clients you aim to help?
I think our product and our technology is at a stage where we're seeing that happen in real time with some amazing customers in the industries that I think really need it the most. I think that's where we're really excited.
In reusable textiles. So some of the companies now they are thinking to come up with a solution, biodegradable product. But the bad thing of those things, if they mix with other non-biodegradable product, the entire batch goes wastage, and that's not sustainable.
Yes, we want to start with the highest need impact areas like packaging, but by starting here, we can now start sprawling out into other verticals as our technology matures, as the marketplace matures, and have a jumping off point where the entry is much shorter, much more direct, and it just allows us to have a platform around our biomaterials that's not single threaded, that go from everything to distribution, to converting, to design, and really now we're starting to look at scale up through production partners where we can start taking our technology to different international regions where the assets, the infrastructure around extrusion, around making plastics is already there.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Innovator Circle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Shah Siddiqui, CEO of Time Research and Innovation, Zenzi Marketing Agency, and Chatbot AI. ICPcast is an initiative to bring innovative ideas, transformative strategies, and forward-thinking insights from various industries, whether it is in technology, artificial intelligence, marketing, finance, lead generation and sales, business advisory and development, tax and accounting, or sustainability. We bring you insight from some of the greatest mind, C-level executives, and industry leaders who are shaping the future. In today's episode, we have a very special guest, and we're going to be covering sustainability today. So before I introduce my guest, I just wanted to give some brief introduction for him. We have John Wells today. He is the co-founder and CEO of CruiseForm. CruiseForm, a Santa Cruz-based startup on mission to replace harmful plastic foams from compostable, planet-friendly alternatives made from food waste. With a background in chemical and material engineering, John blends deep scientific expertise with an entrepreneurial spirit aimed at driving environmental impact at scales. Before launching CruiseForm, John worked in environmental remediation, helping clean up sites like Cape Canaveral and Lux. His experience span applied research in bio-based materials, sustainability, and mechanical modeling. We will discuss today turning food waste into packaging. John Wells on CruiseForm's Eco Revolution. So, to all our viewers, get ready for practical strategies, insightful discussion, fresh ideas to grow, you succeed. Hello, John. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much, because you know that we bring innovators from across the globe to discuss about their contribution to the community, to the world, and specifically in sustainability. And you know, sustainability was a buzzword. Few years back, people talk about sustainability and it was all greenwashing and all of the things. But now it is a need for everyday things. My son, 10 years old, he talk about sustainability. Like, okay, we need to be more sustainable. I don't think about like he does, but I'm a part of a green revolution as well for textile sustainability. So that's why my heart is always with green solutions, green tech, and sustainability. So thank you very much for your contribution today to talk about sustainability. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. No, I'm really excited to chat about this because I think you hit the nail on the head. There's a palpable shift in the mentality, how we're looking at sustainability, how we're addressing it, and really how it's kind of, I think, changing with, I don't want to say the new generations. I have a 6-year-old daughter, so she hasn't quite caught on the sustainability, ins and outs yet, but time will tell. And to your point, I think it's a really important topic to be bringing to the forefront and on all parts of life, and in all different ways we can see that it's really a critical moment in time for what we need to do.
I totally agree with you. But the environment, the few disasters in the past, like bonfire, Scotland is burning now. We had California and lots of different disasters happening everywhere. Still, different governments, they are playing the footballs. Who will do investments and a lot of other things. But I don't think so that we're going to be ready 2 years to come. But we have to have initiative like you, like all other people. They are building the sustainability to the next stage. So as you know, that we're going to be asking different type of questions today to talk about your contribution, expertise, experiences, and supporting the community. My first question to you, could you provide a brief overview of your business and share what inspired you to enter to this field?
Yeah, definitely. I'll keep it brief as much as I can, but I think at the core, when we look at what we built and what we're really trying to achieve with CruiseForm, is looking at how we create biomaterials and the technologies behind them to service the greatest needs and for humankind. And I think one of the big ones that we see immediately is single-use materials like packaging. And when we look at this, I think there's a lot focus on the material itself and how we create it and what it can do and how it performs, which are all extremely important. But I think a lot of times the oversight on the real platform that it needs to tap into, that it needs to effectively work with, when we look at the industrial scale of supply chains, the scalability, the volume that you need to be able to achieve, the global sourcing and supply that you need to really be able to service has been a challenge for biomaterials for the longest time. And we really at Cruise Foam wanted to look at, it starts with the material, but we need to have clear line of sight into how we can develop manufacturing technologies that work with the existing industry as closely as possible. And that's not only for adoption and, lowering barriers of entry, but it's cost driven. It's a cost driven market. And it's really difficult if you can't pair those together with effective, amazing biomaterials, which there's so many out there these days. But I think the hurdle is, how do we really get these to a commercial scale that they can have the impact that they need to have? And for me, I think what really inspired our journey started back when I was in college. I went to college at UC Santa Barbara. I'm California, born and bred. But one of the, it's one of the most amazing areas in the United States. It has these beautiful Channel Islands, but right next to the Channel Islands are enormous amounts of oil rigs, offshore drilling. And I just remember spending so much time there connecting and really spiritually being, part of the ocean, but you see all the destruction that goes along with, how we source materials and the impact it has on our environments. And I think that was the original inspiration for where Cruise Foam came from. And it still drives a lot of our mission and our, path forward today. When you look at, I would say the biggest representation of the problem is things like microplastics. And it's like, how do we get these out of our oceans? It's really a challenging problem that we need collaboration across the entire stakeholder system to see this happen.
I totally agree with you. I can remember a few years back, because I run a research organization. So we were researching on how you can build biodegradable product from cellulose. And you know that I'm in Southeast Asia, and we have lots of cellulose-based products, lots of cellulose over there. But, the production of the cellulose and making it workable is a catch-22 situation, because how you can make it happen. So thank you very much that you have made it possible, and it will steer the growth of the sustainability to the next levels. And thank you for your contribution greatly. So my next question to you, could you discuss the key issues in your industry and explain how your efforts are making a difference for your clients and collaborators?
Yeah, no, great question. And I kind of touched on it. I think on the macro level, what people understand, fairly well, maybe they don't understand all the implications behind it, is a generation and accumulation of waste that we see of man-made materials just blanketing our earth. These materials aren't going anywhere. They don't break down quick enough if they break down at all. And they're ending up in, not just our ocean and waterways, but we look at microplastics. I mean, they're in our children. They're in our, brain barrier. It's troubling, to say the least, of the direction we're going and then how quickly it's going that route. And so when I look at our material, the quick and easiest on the face of it value and real solution we're offering is high performing foam. It really, mimics and performs the same as a styrofoam or polyethylene in the applications we're going in for, packaging right now. But the idea is it breaks down in less than 8 weeks. It leaves no microplastics. It's regenerative to soil. We actually see better germination of early plant growth with a high content of Cruise Foam in the composted material. And so on that front, that's very, I don't want to say easy to understand, but that's where we have to make sure we start there. Because if we're not solving that problem, then you're not doing anything. But I think with that's the first step, because where we really wanted to shift this industry, touched on at the beginning, was a lot of materials have been able to achieve everything I just said in that statement. Performance, we can break down, check those boxes, but then you get to the final checkbox and it says, okay, what about scale and volume and cost? And that's where what we really wanted to do differently was build a process which could run through existing manufacturing techniques around plastics. And two of the most common ones are injection molding and extrusion. And I don't want to say we can do both. We can, but we commercialized first in extrusion technology. And so we really spent a maniacal amount of time and effort to really build a platform where we could take our biomaterials and produce them through partners through existing stakeholders in production and conversion and distribution to create high volume, high performing foam, a biofoam, that the real critical, I think, value we brought to this industry is we can drop in with the existing infrastructure around commercialization. There's a lot of foam at scale, which people don't realize, not that they necessarily would until you're in this industry. Foam is bought on giant rolls or in giant planks, 4 foot, 8 foot, planks or rolls. And up until, I would think what we've been able to achieve, at least in the foam space, this industry hasn't been able to take a biofoam of that size, of that volume, and of that format, and run it through their existing, infrastructure of commercialization. And being able to achieve that, that's really where I think we've shifted a huge mindset of what's possible, the capabilities of what biomaterials can be, both in their performance, but in their scale. And bringing that to the marketplace, we have seen just such a huge shift in the engagement across that value chain, not just from, the brands that we work with, like the Sonys, the Whirlpools, and these guys, but the ones that are actually layers beneath them, the ones that are actually doing the supply chains, the ones that are actually building the raw material inputs that go into their packaging and their products. And having that type of engagement and being able to do it effectively is really, I think, going to open the door on what's possible for what we can do with our customers, our partners, and for this industry.
Great explanation, John. I just wanted to touch a few touch points from your conversation. Previously, you said that in your college, you start thinking about biodiversity and all other things. I know as a college student and young person, it's very difficult to nurture your idea to come to get to this point. Who was your ideal supporter or lead you through success?
That's a good question. I could probably pick a few different ones out there. I would say the first person that really made me feel that this was possible, that we should, look at doing something incredibly challenging, incredibly risky, was my co-founder, Marco Rolandi. When I did my master's in materials at University of Washington, I met him up there. He was the professor I did my thesis under, and he exposed me to biomaterials for the first time. And we honestly had a very strong relationship through our love of the ocean and love of surfing. And he was the first one that kind of put the seed in my head saying, like, why can't we do something incredible? Why can't we look at doing something that, other people say can't be done? And it's sitting right here in front of us. I mean, he had been working with this material a lot in like research and, nothing really with line of sight on getting out of the lab. But we kind of just had the harebrained idea of why not try to turn this incredible material into something like, we started with surfboards. We're like, why not try to turn this into a surfboard? And, a lot of people probably know this, but the core of most surfboards is foam. It's a polyurethane foam, or it's a polystyrene, styrofoam core. And we're like, what a crappy material to be riding around in the ocean. Like, something we love so much is like riding on a piece of trash. So it just felt really, wrong. And I think we dove off, and that was the first person I think really helped guide me into taking that risk. But, it gets challenging along the way. And I think, about a year in, maybe a little bit before that, but about a year in, after spending the early days doing the technology in the lab up at University of Santa Cruz, because we came down from University of Washington to come locate here, we moved out, and like, you try to get into accelerated, you try to get into these incubators, you try to understand all these different development programs. And I think a lot of times they're good intention, but we were definitely doing something that a little bit out of the mold back then. A lot of people, and even now, we're doing software or, different things. Making a hard good is a different ball game. And I met a man, his name was Toby Corey. He was probably my first major advisor. He was my COO for a few years, but he was a founder in the late 90s. He worked for Tesla and Solar City. He had the mindset of entrepreneurial drive like nobody I've seen before. And I think aligning yourself around those types of mindsets really can help shape a lot of the things that you just don't know until you do it. And like, I had no business background. I don't want to say that the pun, I had no business being a businessman, but it's like I was an engineer. And so having him kind of come in and be like, this is what we need to be looking at. This is how we need to be building. This is how you need to execute, really, really helped in the early days. And I think that's critical to surround yourself with people like that.
Thank you very much. Because, there are some innovators I have seen working with different type of people, businesses. Sometimes they forgot about their past. They don't recognize those people. They step into the current situation. I came from Bangladesh in the UK in different stages. I had different people I had a brain tumor surgery. Still, I achieved whatever I wanted to. But without the help of those people, I wouldn't be here. So thank you very much for your gratitude. And I think you will go furthermore because talking to you, I can feel the culture. And when you have a good culture, there is everything there.
Changes
Thank
everything.
you. So my next question to you, who are the clients you aim to help and what key benefits do you deliver to them?
Yeah, I would say without a doubt, when we look at the space, one of the most challenging areas is servicing the large enterprise customers, the Fortune 100s, the Fortune 500s, and specifically when we look at the areas around global supply chains, being able to engage and offer a solution that can really service something of that enormity is challenging. So we, Sony's a customer that invested in us. We see a lot of opportunity when we look at certain verticals. Obviously, we're looking at packaging, but we can't service all of packaging at once. I think where we're really understanding it is where are the products that, have a lot of potential embedded carbon, have a lot of impact that they need to, that goes into building these products, things like electronics, things like appliances, luxury. We look at a lot of, food and beverage, higher end food and beverages. One amazing customer that we work with is a group called Wild Idea Buffalo. And so it's looking at these high impact industries that when you look at the product itself, it needs to be protected because to get that product and to make it and to get it to the end consumer, these brands have done a ton of work, have optimized an enormous amount around scope 1 and scope 2, type of ESG emissions, really dialing in that level of the sustainability and trying to bring better levels of reduction to the areas that they can control. But a lot of these enterprise customers, when you look at scope 3, which really is about supply chain, to no fault of their own in a lot of ways, they're removed from that because it's a distribution partner, it's a converting partner, it's a raw material supplier. There's a lot more players along that stakeholder system to implement change for them to address scope 3 sustainability initiatives that they have across their brands, and especially these large players. And so our ability, especially in the cold chain areas and the block and brace or protection areas for these higher end, sensitive, high impact type of products, we really see being able to help them and offer a solution that keeps the product safe, because that's kind of number one. Because I hate to say it, but if your TV ends up damaged, there's a lot more impact and loss resources that have gone in to make that than the packaging. But if we can offer packaging that retains the product but also removes the impact and the horrendous materials we're using right now to package a lot of these products, that's the win-win, because we can do that right now at cost. We can do it with the performance. And then you have this narrative and this story that everybody wants to get behind. Everybody wants to go this direction. But if you're sacrificing the primary good, then never going to be a value proposition and something that's going to answer the need for these customers. And I think our product and our technology that is stage where we're seeing that happen in real time with some amazing customers and the industries that I think really need it the most. And I think that's where we're really excited.
I totally agree with you, because when we are researching with textile industries, that in reusable textiles, and some of the companies now, they are thinking to come up with a solution, biodegradable product. But the bad thing of those things, if they mix with other non-biodegradable product, the entire batch goes wastage, and that's not sustainable. So you have come up with your solution to make it happen. I think that a great work you have done, and thank you very much for doing that. My next question, what make your approach unique to helping clients achieving those outcomes that you just mentioned?
Yeah, I would say probably what makes our solution the most unique is we're really trying to address the problem on the fundamental scale. We're not trying to go in, offer a sustainable material or sustainable technology that fits one, and this is kind of a pun, but fits one box. There's a lot of sustainable solutions out there that are kind of geared towards one thing, which the majority of them is cold chain. There's a lot of guys out there that I think have found cold chain packaging things, that we all get. I'm sure a lot of us have seen it in our shipments to our doorstep. And I think that's fantastic. Like, we need that. But I think what we've really wanted to do differently, and I've kind of touched on, a couple of these touch points, is looking not just at like, okay, we need to solve the end life of this not becoming a waste and not, ever degrading. We need to make sure it has good recovery. But we really need to understand how we start addressing and providing biomaterials that can service multiple applications, multiple verticals from the onset. And the only really way to do that is to look at how they're produced at scale and how they're brought into the commercial commercial environments, and we're looking at packaging, but we're also having line of sights on other industries like construction, other industries like automotive, transportation. There's so many different areas when we look at where foam can go. If we're starting with, hey, we made the final product into a box, well, how is that ever going to service something like, insulation in your home? How's that ever going to be turned into, cushioning for a car? How is it going to be XYZ? And I think that what we really want to differentiate is if we start at the beginning and address the fundamental way in which we can produce a biofoam, yes, we want to start with the highest need impact areas like packaging. But by starting here, we can now start sprawling out into other verticals as our technology matures, as the marketplace matures, and have a jumping off point where the entry is much shorter, much more direct, and it just allows us to have a platform around our biomaterials that's not single threaded. And for me, I think that's really the uniqueness in what our technology has done and where it can go in a lot of ways.
Thank you, John. A great explanation of your work. So my next questions, are partnerships part of your business model? And from your partner perspectives, what benefits make you an ideal collaborator?
Yeah, there's no question that partnerships are part of our model. One of our really good partners is a group called Atlantic Packaging. We've been connected to them from the beginning. They're an enormous player when we look at, really putting effort and resources and intention behind bringing sustainable solutions to scale, to the marketplace. And I think at the heart of it, the only way this is going to work is with partnerships, because if we, if you look backwards, not to sound slight like a broken record, but it's like the Whirlpools of the world. Yes, they design and they make the stove, but they're not sitting there in their Whirlpool factory, sourcing the cardboard, sourcing the foam, sourcing the shrink wrap, printing on the box and wrapping it around their, stove. They have 3-4 different suppliers that are doing all those ins and outs for them to put the final packaging around that stove that then goes into a box store and goes out to the consumer. So if we can't partner, if we can't work with these suppliers and these stakeholders that are 3-4 layers down from Whirlpool, how are they ever going to be able to buy and get our technology and our product into global supply chains of a size of that level? Yes, if we go work with a private supplier, they're doing all the packaging themselves, 100%, that would be a much more direct relationship. But when you get to a certain level of volume, if you don't have line of sight of how to form good partnerships with the incumbents, provide a product that can service their needs, we're never going to achieve the impact and scale that we need to. And so from that point of view, we have fantastic brand partners. We have some of the most incredible brands that we work with, but now it's really over the last 6 to 9 months, almost a year, really building a network of channel partners that go from everything to distribution, to converting, to design. And really now we're starting to look at scale up through production partners where we can start taking our technology to different international regions where the assets, the infrastructure around extrusion, around making plastics is already there. So we can tap into it. Yes, we need to do some tweaks here and there. Of course we do. But we don't have to come in and build a new $100 million factory from the ground up. A lot of this is already in place. And that's the real beauty, I think, of how we can partner and how we can really use that to execute and accelerate our technology at scale into larger levels of commercialization to service this need globally. And I think that's where, being able to do that is just opens up the door organically for really strong partnerships.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your explanation. So to all the viewers, thank you for watching today the ICPcast. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui and I have John Felt's Cruise Forms. Now we are taking a brief break before diving into some fantastic insights. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Great conversations start with thought-provoking ideas, and visionary leaders turn them into reality. Meet Dr. Shah Siddiqui, an entrepreneur, AI strategist, and business growth partner dedicated to helping professionals and companies push boundaries, innovate, and thrive to drive transformation.
Did you know that 92% of executives consider digital transformation and AI adaptation are essential for staying competitive in today's market? Furthermore, companies that use data-driven insights for decision-making also see a 23% boost in profitability compared to those that don't. Through ICPcast, we bring together the brightest minds in AI, business, finance, marketing, and other tentative fields to deliver strategies that drive measurable success.
Dr. Shah is the founder and C-level executive and leads multiple startups, including Gen Z marketing agency, Neurodivergent Business Consortium, NBC, Time Research and Innovation, TRI, and Green Threads DPP. He is AI and technology expert and helps businesses harness AI for scalability and efficiency. He is a sales and business growth strategist and the creator of the Sales Funnel Accelerator, SFA program, to guide C-suite executives to maximize conversions and revenue.
You might be surprised to learn innovation isn't just about your ideas. It's about execution. In fact, only 10% of companies successfully turn their innovative ideas into scalable strategies, while the rest struggle with execution. Businesses that focus on effective implementation rather than just ideation 3 times more likely to outperform their competitors. After working with industry leaders and disruptors, I have learned one thing: success isn't just about what you know, it's about how you apply it. That's why I created Sales Funnel Accelerator and ICPcast to provide actionable insights that you can apply right way to drive business growth and innovation.
Podcasting is now one of the most powerful tools for business influence, with 80% of listeners taking action after hearing expert insights. And when it comes to driving sales, 78% of social sellers outperform peers who don't use social media for business networking.
Are you ready to be the part of the conversation that is shaping the future of business? Let's explore innovation, strategy, and leadership together. Book your cast with me today. Hello everyone, welcome back to our Innovator Circle podcast. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui and I have John Feltz, Cruise Form. We have got some exciting insights coming up. So stay with us as we dive deeper into the world of technology as well as sustainability. So let's get started. Thank you, John, for your contribution today. And I think our viewers will learn a lot of takeaways from these sessions. My next question, could you share your insight on the upcoming industry trend and how you are adapting to remain ahead?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's definitely a lot of flux, a lot of movement in the industry around sustainability, around the circular economy. If we're looking at kind of materials and the space that we play in around supply chains, obviously we could probably talk about the tariffs and the unknown factors there all day long, but we'll leave that one off to the side for a minute. I think when we look at sustainability, on the heart of it, there's obviously some concerns, at least in the United States, around how certain legislation is potentially being delayed, where it's going. I think there is still good tailwinds behind things like extended producer responsibility or EPR. There's still, I think, a lot of good movement into looking at, alternatives and how to support them. But one of the things that we're really trying to understand and really bring to the forefront, which I think is an important narrative and a really good opportunity, is the shift away from looking at sustainability around the context strictly around carbon. And I not to say carbon isn't a good thing to have as a benchmark and understanding, but I think a lot of this shift from that and more towards topics that I don't want to say are more relatable, but are more directly touch us as humans, to things like microplastics and how we need to be looking at sustainability to address things through the lens human health, through the lens not so much waste, but industrial scale of cleanup and the feasibility behind it, especially when we look at all the challenges we've seen through recyclability and kind of, I think, the real spotlight that has come on what is recyclable, what's not recyclable, where that's going. And I think a lot of it comes through understanding the first stages of design and sustainability, and understanding really we need to be looking at not just the raw materials we take from this planet, but how we design the products and the packaging and the different things that go into our supply chain at scale to work within, as much as they can, the human systems that we have, but also have the capability to transcend them. And what I mean by that is, like, cruise foam itself is, an earth digestible material. As I said at the beginning, we leave no microplastics. And so heaven forbid it doesn't end up in a composting environment or correctly, collected, which was obviously the ideal case. But if it doesn't, we need to be understanding the reality of these materials and how they break down on scales and don't do harm. And so I think that's, like, for me, if you fast forward a little bit and look at the microplastics picture, if we can understand the holistic nature of how all these things are connected, which I'm hoping is what we're seeing happen in more real time, with narratives being more directly focused in areas like suggestions, like I'm saying, around microplastics, that's where I'm thinking there can hopefully be a switch towards the positive through a lot of what I would say is unknownness of what's going to happen over the next couple of years. But I will tell you this, the brands that we work with, like the LVMHs, they're doubling down. They're not slowing down. And I think it's finding those players, finding the ones that are standing behind the work and the need of how this needs to shift are the ones that are going to, win out at the end, because the consumer is getting smarter and smarter and smarter every day. You see it with your 10-year-old. I'm starting to see it with my 6-year-old. Like, they're not going to take the BS for much longer. And I think that's where, is it going to shift? Is it slowing down? I guess that's up for debate, but sooner or later, there's no turning away from the change that's on our doorstep, and it's the children behind us. And so I just hope we can be a part of to support that change instead of being a blocker as we drone on. But it's definitely an interesting period. There's no question.
I totally agree with you, because the way the society is going, I know that there is too big war in the Middle East and as well as in Europe, and as well as the changes of the climate, the changes of the US politics, and it's making us it's very difficult nowadays to understand where the things will go. But in EU, they are ahead of most of the games, I would say, in sustainability. So the legislation for the DPP, Digital Product Passport, is imposing in 2027, and I'm not sure that they can do it by 2027 because it's huge backlog. Because I've been to many of the sustainable meetings that they do every month, and where the Trump is not thinking about sustainability. So when America follows, rest of the world follows. But in there, I don't know what will happen. But anyway, we're not going to touch on that. My next question to you, can you discuss a major obstacles you have overcome, the lessons you have applied?
Interesting. Yeah, to your point, like some of the biggest challenges we've had to overcome early on is a lot of the ambiguity around where things are going, how we fit into them, developing a technology that is going to hit a wall for something 5 years down the road that we can't predict. Like, that is an incredibly challenging thing to be innovating in, because a lot of the legislation to date has been, it was 2025, that's clearly going to change, but now it's like 2030 plus 2040. We're in a startup world. We innovate quickly. We can't work in constraints of no idea where legislation or regulation is going to go in 5 to 10 years and develop a technology. And to your point, like, that's why we've had to be really adaptable. We've had to develop something that can shift, can pivot, and can really work within these unknown constraints that have been really difficult for us. And I think to our point, one of the things that we had to get over, and we're still, there's still growing pains around this today, is breaking through that initial paradigm of engaging with the larger stakeholder system, the larger incumbents. And a lot of that is because of the unknown nature of the industry and where it's going. But when you step back, and I won't name names, but I've sat down with 2 of the 3 largest CEOs of the 2 largest foaming operations in the United States. When they look at our foam and they, we talk about what we're doing, and we ask them bluntly, like, where do you think this industry is going? They say there's no doubt. They're going towards biofoam. This is where this is happening and going. But because there isn't strong alignment in the regulatory legislation and basically across that stakeholder, there's very hard incentivization to bring that technology to the forefront and the collaboration to happen effectively. So like 2.5 years ago, we were sitting down with some of the largest foamers and saying, hey, this technology is ready to scale. You guys want to do this with us? And they all basically said, yes, but no, like, go prove it and do all the hard work first, because we don't really need to. And we're like, okay, great. And so in hindsight, I think it was a blessing in disguise, because we're able to build our commercial operation on the East Coast, we're producing full scale, and now we own all the technology. And so I think that delayed us about a year and a half longer than we had planned, because we were expecting to form a partnership earlier on, get a lot of expertise, and use those resources and, the engine behind them to, move faster. But it didn't work out that way. But I think we're now in a position where we can engage internationally with any type of operation without having our hands, tied behind our back, because we own all the technology, all the platform. And that, I think, is serving us well right now. But we still run into those challenges, because you look at engaging in the US with partners is much different than engaging with partners in, Europe, different than engaging with partners down in Mexico, and different engagement. It's not that the technology is different. The geopolitical and societal, constructs are much different. And that's where it's difficult as an early stage company of like 20, 25 people to like, these behemoths don't even know what they're doing. How are we supposed to come in and be like, hey, we've got it all figured it out. It's the wild, wild west in a lot of ways, where I think global supply chains are going, and how new technologies are effectively adopted. And we're all, I think the old adage is, building the plane as you fly it. And that's definitely what it feels like across this industry right now. But I think that's where opportunity lies. And I think we just have to be in a situation where we're okay with the unknown and the risk as much as we can be, but be adaptable and have a robust technology that can do as much as it can. It's probably the right word.
Thank you. I totally understand what you've been through. When it is a roller coaster, you don't know what actually happened, but still you need to perform well, thinking about your great cause. Like, okay, it doesn't matter the, politics, all politicians, they will change. It's just few years. You need to stick to on your gut. Like, okay, the good thing I'm doing is going to be transform the world, and it will definitely. Thank you very much for your contribution today. I have the next questions. Are there any misconceptions in your industry you wanted to clarify to the audience today?
Man, misconceptions. I don't know. That's a weird question. I wouldn't say there's any huge misconceptions across the industry. I think a lot of people are stuck on this idea that there can only be two camps. And it's, you have the plastic that we have today, or it has to be the most perfectly sustainable silver bullet, nothing can be wrong with it solution. And innovation doesn't work that way. You don't go from something that's been around for 90 years to having something that literally solves every single problem and facet of what we're trying to get rid of. So we need to really, I think, as a group and as kind of an industry wide, obviously we want to start as far away as we can from this. We don't want to start with one little tiny 1% change, but to think we're going to get to 100% overnight, I think is unrealistic, and I think is inhibiting a lot of engagement and innovation. Can we start at 50%? Yes, it's not perfect, but we got to start, and we got to get something going. Then let's get to the 75. Then let's get to the 90. And then, maybe one day we'll get to a full 100. But I think from my mindset, and that has to come from both sides, but I think we need to start understanding the practical approaches to really tackling a problem of the enormity that we see around, packaging or global supply chains.
Thank you for your clarifications. So my last questions, what advice would you give to inspiring entrepreneurs looking to make a mark in your field?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is probably just to, think differently in what a biomaterial can be, not just in the material, but in how and where it can influence this industry. I think there's so many touch points along that value chain, not just in how it's produced, but how it's manufactured, how it's converted and turned into different products. I think don't look at just the final solution like it needs to fit into this box as this widget. I think we need to be looking at really addressing this from the fundamental platform of biomaterials servicing the broader spectrum of the industry. And I think that's when we will start seeing this go towards the 100% silver bullet. But we got it. And that's what I think we're trying to start is, hey, we're starting on a platform. We're only trying to solve, say, 50% of it around packaging. But we start here and we do this well, then we can start tackling these other guys. And I think if people come in with the mindset of understanding the holistic nature of this industry and not just looking at the end game of waste and solving the waste problem, we need to shift the paradigm of understanding how these stakeholders work, because this industry has been built for 90 years. I don't want to say perfected it, but they've got it it's a well-oiled machine. And we need to understand where the opportunities are along that value chain to really start, engaging more effectively and not just looking at the shiny end product. There's so much opportunity at the beginning scale that I think we should be tackling.
Thank you, John. Thank you. It was a great pleasure talking to you today. So now is the fun part. I'm going to ask you a few questions that is not related to your work. It's related to totally you. Do you cook?
I do cook. I'm a big barbecuer. My wife does all the other cooking. If it's a barbecue job, that's me. I'm in.
Okay. What is the most you like to eat as food-wise?
Oh, man, that's a good question. We obviously have some really fantastic, Mexican food here in California. But if I was to say, if I had to pick one out of a hat, I don't know. I really like some good Indian food, when I go to London and get some good, I've never been to India myself. So maybe that's, I've heard what I've had in London a few times I've been there has just blown me away. I love it. It's so good.
But do you know that the restaurants in London or in the UK, the Indian cuisine, the homegrown food is different than the cuisine.
I've heard. So that's why
So
I'm curious.
Normally don't go to Indian cuisine because the way we cook food is totally different the way they deliver. But anyway,
That's funny.
there are some good
That's
food out
funny.
there. Next thing, what you hate most?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. That's such a big question. Hate's a strong word. I'll keep it light. I hate pretty closely two football teams,
Okay.
Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspurs. So hopefully there's no fans watching from those two teams. But
come over to the UK. They're gonna hate you. They're gonna hate you. Football is massive here, and they
I
love
know.
like
I know.
the bloodline.
I know. I'm a huge Arsenal fan, so those are the two teams I can't stand, to say the least. But it's all good.
Okay. You know that with Amazon, you have a chance to go to the space. Okay, so if you were selected, will you go or refuse that opportunity, and why?
I feel like I'd probably go. It's something you've heard a million times, but I think the perspective of seeing our world from that position, I imagine would touch you in a very personal way, at least from my mind. I would think, I've always had this idea of like, not to say what we're doing is pointless, because that's how you're ever going to live your life, and that's your mindset. But it's like the time frame in which we live and the universe and everything, and like seeing the world not being on it, I just feel like would just shift. It would just shift, what you think is possible. And I think having those moments in life can sometimes just, bring enormous opportunity. And like I said, it's about being curious. So I feel like if I saw that, I just feel like I would start thinking of things differently. That might, it would be fun. I think I'd have to go.
That's great. I guess my last questions. Someone gave you £1 million. What you would do with that?
Well, I do have a 6-year-old daughter, so I probably have to look a little bit at taking care of her. But I think part of it is I think life is best lived through experience. And so I think if there's ways in which I can go understand some of these areas around, the planet, that especially in this day and age with culture and geopolitics being what it is, I think especially, I probably want my daughter to be a little bit older, but if I could take her and really expose her to just different walks of life and get her, that perspective in her, I think is so incredibly powerful and important for people to be able to achieve. And so if there's a way I can help and impact with it, I would definitely do that. But if I'm thinking, slightly selfishly and just off the forefront of my head, I think open up those doors and being able to just really grow as a person and understand where maybe I can have impact and opportunity in my next stage of life, I think that would be incredible to be able to do.
Thank you, John. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I think today our viewers, they would love to watch and share this episode with their people, with their friends, family, and colleagues. And I hope you have enjoyed a lot as well. So,
it's been a pleasure.
Few takeaways you want the audience to take from this episode?
I think the biggest one is the biggest problems only change by starting. And I think we kind of talked about at the beginning, we got to start understanding where these innovations can really, start growing and get a foothold and having the change and impact we need. And that only happens through enormous levels of creativity, curiosity, but having the fortitude and mindset of really trying to take on something that people say can't be done. And, we definitely had a handful that said that what we were trying to do was not possible. And well, we're doing it now. And I think from my point of view, one of my biggest, not mantras, but, things I've said is I think a lot of people in their life get a handful, if that, maybe it's only 1 or 2 really unique opportunities that come across their plate. And it's usually to do something incredibly impactful and incredibly, powerful. Like when I met Marco and he's like, come down to Santa Cruz to make cruise foam surfboards. And I was like, what? But I did it. And I think the challenge is a lot of times he's come with enormous amounts of risk and enormous amounts of unknown, enormous amounts of opportunity for failure. But I implore people to take that leap, take that jump, take the risk. You're only going to get them a handful of times. And if you fall flat in your face, at least you fucking went for it. And I think from my point of view, like, life is short. I think it's important to do something that you care about and you're passionate about. And that's the core of what life is about. So
I totally agree with you, because when I went to my brain tumor surgery, I did not know that I will come back.
Yeah, that's heavy.
That point, experiencing that moment changed my lives differently. So I think the things that you just said, you have to take the chances to be good for the world and for everyone. So thank you everyone for tuning in to Innovator Circle podcast. We hope that today's conversation with John Feltz, Chris Forms, has sparked fresh ideas to provide valuable insights to elevate your business strategies, whether it is in sales, marketing, finance, innovation, or sustainability. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter on ICPcast.com. Share this episode with your network. Leave us a review to help us reach and inspire leaders like John Feltz. Like our page on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube channels, Sales Funnel Accelerator and Behind the Scenes Success content, and all the updates of this episode and any other episodes. So until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep leading the way of innovation. Thank you, John, and thank you, everyone, and bye-bye.
Welcome to ICPcast. Meet Joseph Lewis, owner of Isler Wealth Management and host of ICPcast. Grow your wealth and join him on the podcast by filling out the form. As the owner of Isler Wealth Management and host of ICPcast, Joseph combines deep expertise with a personalized approach, helping clients plan, invest, and grow their wealth with confidence. Check out the ICPcast and Isler Wealth blogs for expert insights and resources to grow your wealth and knowledge. Tune in, explore the blogs, and connect with Joseph Lewis, owner, host, and wealth expert. Fill out the form to join him on ICPcast today.